Hi, everybody. I'm Pat O'Brien, prop master on MacGyver, years 86 to 90, and you're listening to Mac on the MacGyver podcast.
Hi, I'm Richard Dean Anderson.
Name's MacGyver.
Colonel Jack O'Neill, SG-1.
My name is Pratt, Ernest Pratt.
I always get a happy, tingly feeling when I see those guys.
Name one contract that I failed to execute.
MacGyver.
Oh, here we go.
You're a target. And I don't intend to miss.
Over my rotting corpse. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? Glowing eyes, cliche behavior, evilness, that kind of thing.
Is mental illness contagious?
You think?
You can do anything you want to do if you put your mind. Well, you do have a penchant for pulling brilliant ideas out of your butt. Head. Out of your head when we need them. Oh, the stuff's already here. I just find a different way to use it.
I like your attitude.
Permission to take a team through the Stargate, sir.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the MacGyver podcast. I'm your host, Mac Jackson, and today I have Pat O'Brien on, who, there he is. He was the prop master on MacGyver from, what'd you say, 86 to 90, right?
Correct.
See? All right. Well, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me. It's great.
Of course. Well, I appreciate you reaching out because I try to make this not just a celebratory type of show, but also one where like-minded people can get together and discuss not only MacGyver and Stargate, but like the influence that it's had on many of our lives.
Yeah.
It's a rarity, but for a show that ran from 85 to 92, technically 94 if you go into the movies, but it's undying and its legacy lives on and its inspiration, which is amazing. And whenever I get someone who knows it and doesn't need to be educated to come on is great. But if I get someone such as yourself who has great behind the scenes stories, that's priceless. So I appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, you know, it's funny what you say about it being a legacy. There are people that don't know I worked on the show who are not old, weren't born when the show was on, who say, "Oh, you just did a MacGyverism," or "I'm going to have to MacGyver that." So it's part of the culture now, regardless of whether you watch the show or not.
I love that, and it's so, it helps kind of bring in people to go, why'd you call it that? Where'd that come from? If I'm in the room, I'm like, all right, sit down. This is going to be a while.
Yeah. Well, I usually, when somebody says that, I usually say, "Well, what's some like I play dumb?"
Oh,
and just
so you hear what they think it is?
Yeah.
I agree. Well, a couple years ago, I don't know, the new generation would call them life hacks.
Yes.
And I'm like, nope.
Right. Nope.
That's not what it is. And you could spend your life on social media correcting people. And I'm like, it's actually a MacGyverism. Don't call it a life hack, you millennial, know nothing.
Don't get me started.
I know. I'm with you. Well, I have to suffer through, not to go on a rant. I've had to suffer through the 2016 version of the show. And it's not MacGyver.
Well, you know what? I watched the pilot, the very first episode, so that I have to watch.
You have to. It's law.
And I thought it was pretty good, considering that they have to, make it for a younger audience. It's obviously a lot more high tech, and computers are a big part of it, and all of that. But I thought for what it was pretty good.
Did you? Yeah, well, stay away because you'll be upset on many levels.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't have any skin in that game.
Right.
And I only watched the one episode.
Yeah.
So I was prepared to be disappointed. Let's put it that way. So it was a low bar.
Well, if you go back and listen to previous episodes of the podcast, you could hear me and my co-host go, "Oh no, they're not connected." Because if they were smart, they would connect it to the original and say it's his grandson or his son or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Because that way, no matter what they do, you're not trampling on the actual MacGyver. Yeah. Well, in this case, they're going, we want you to forget the icon and we want to do it our way. Well, there's nothing other than the name that would connect it to actual MacGyver.
It's true.
His story, who he is, anything about him. But the MacGyverisms don't even try to work in this case.
Oh, really?
Like, the guy who is Rhett, I'm sorry, Rhett, can't think of his name, but he's their science consultant.
Okay.
And he'll go on, God bless him, he'll go on after a show and say, or during the show and say, okay, the thing you just saw there technically could work if they had not, and like, and I'm just thinking, as an audience, they don't even bother to show, because you're watching MacGyver and they take the time to show him in real time, put this to this and this to that. And, that's part of the, wow, the joy, the excitement. In this case, they go split screen, explosion.
Really? Oh,
I'm telling, and it's every episode. They don't want you to know that he's really not really doing a MacGyverism.
Yeah.
They just kind of want to give the illusion of he's so smart. Do your thing. Explosion.
That's not good. Yeah, on the original, there was often when we were doing MacGyverisms where he would blow something up, we would miss a step.
Yep.
Or wouldn't show a step because we didn't want the kids at home to
I love
try
that.
it.
I
So,
remember seeing
it was
that in
all
the
there,
paper.
but yeah, it was all
But
there.
they'd like
we
take
didn't-
out the gunpowder or something,
exactly, something. Yeah.
which is brilliant, because I remember finding that out there. Like, no, 90% of, as long as it doesn't have explosions, the science is accurate.
Yeah.
The moment that a kid can hurt themselves,
Yeah.
and I remember reading there was a big controversy. I don't know if it was on Entertainment Tonight or like they made a big deal out of going, a mother's trying to sue MacGyver for her kid blowing themselves up. And they just went, nope, because here's the document that shows what we took out. And they went, oh, so my kid's just stupid? Yeah. Okay.
Or maybe the kid's really smart.
Right. Right. He found something that would light on fire.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing to watch a show that doesn't age. Like, some shows are great and you love them, but like you can tell, okay, well, this was during that time and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But MacGyver, I pop on, I'm like, this is so superior in not just the writing, which is superior, but the directing, the timing, the camera angle, just to show like a copter. I always say a copter coming in the beginning credits.
Yeah.
People take it for granted because you go, well, yeah, that's what I expect.
Well, you know what it is? It's because back in the day, we didn't have all the special effects and certainly not the animated graphics they have today. So a lot of the stuff that we did had to be what we call mechanical effects. It was something that was actually something you'd build or something you'd have to do with his hands, as opposed to, going on a computer and creating something. So I think in that respect, it was more interesting because you had to figure things out in your brain. You didn't have technology and everything
for
to help you.
You're right.
Which I think was the pure MacGyver, actually just on the spot with a tree branch and a paper clip, figuring, okay, now what am I going to do?
Anytime he was in the woods, he was in the woods, you went, so now he's stripped down to the bare minimum. He doesn't even get to use a car or electricity.
Exactly.
He's got sticks and stones. Let's see what he does.
Yeah.
And that's amazing, because you always knew when those episodes came on, you're like, ooh, we're going to hit a new level today.
I'll tell you a story about that, actually.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I don't know, I saw part of your interview with Steve Downing, and I don't think he mentioned it, but at the very beginning when they first came to Vancouver, there was this kind of a myth that if a crew member came up with a MacGyverism, they would get $50. And so on one of the very first episodes, it was the Sasquatch episode.
Oh, yeah.
MacGyver was in the woods and he had to get on a boat and he had to make a bar. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, he made somebody had to paddle.
Yeah, with the branch.
And he took a branch that was wide. And that I came up with that.
That was you. All right.
Yeah. But I got about 2 weeks later, I got a check for $50. And on the memo, it said MacGyverism. And apparently, to my knowledge, I'm the only person that actually got the $50 in the form of an official check, which I stupidly cashed. I wish I'd kept it.
Yeah, well, you could have taken nowadays.
Oh,
right? Because nowadays, anything I think I'm going to need, I just, with my phone and...
You have no idea. No email, fax machines were just new when we started. It was a nightmare. Yeah.
And the computers were huge.
Oh, yeah.
I was in college in 93. So MacGyver had just wrapped. And I remember being brought into the computer lab at college at Penn State. And they go, do you know about the internet? And I said, the inter what now? I said, sit down. type in something, anything that you like. I'm like, all right, MacGyver. I swear to God, this isn't, I'm not faking it. I'm like, all right, MacGyver. Here is a website dedicated to MacGyver. Great. Well, I remember then, if anything was typed, it was green letters on a black background.
Yeah, oh yeah, DOS.
Any of the pictures were pixelated, so you couldn't really like print them out and use them. But you go, I think I know what episode that's from. If it could just clear that image up, you know. And now I tell my kids, like, you don't understand. Not to say in my day, because I'll tell them stories about his grandparents and how they didn't even have TV.
Yeah.
So to go step by step up until, you know, a phone where you could take a picture of anything you want and post it on the internet.
Yeah.
So yes, I do remember that. And those were
the days, as we like to say.
And dial-up. Dial-up was brutal.
Oh, well, actually, we didn't have dial-up on the show.
Right. That was
I don't think
early.
we actually did. I think that came a few years later.
It did. It was right after it. Because I remember we got a computer for our home, and I thought,
oh boy, you're really
we're big shot. But then you sit there and go beep boop, beep boop. And then once it came on, I hope you like that page, because if you want to go to the next page, you got to wait 5 minutes for it to
reload.
Yeah. But you're right.
Yeah, we used to keep quarters with us all the time because we'd have pagers, no cell phones, pagers. Pager would go off and you look for a payphone. That was how you communicated back then.
Yep. Well,
anyway,
yeah, I was
do
just
people really
saying.
want to hear about the in my day stories? Or,
Sure. Well, it's funny too,
about MacGyver,
because anybody who was born after MacGyver, this is all like, really? Wow, you didn't just bang rocks together and communicate,
pretty much.
you know? Yeah, I want to get started with, how did you find yourself in that position? Because I'll tell you, for me, I think it's one of the unsung heroes of any movie or TV. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if somebody, say, moves a lamp from here to there for whatever reason, before you film the next shot, you kind of have to make sure it gets back where it belongs.
Yeah. Well, there's several people whose job it is to do that. But yeah, at the end of the day, continuity, where things go, where things move, it's mostly down to props. Absolutely. The script supervisor is ultimately responsible, but she's got so many things to think. She or he has got so many things to think about that they rely on other people to help. So, that's why I am convinced, 100% convinced, that Game of Thrones left that Starbucks cup there on purpose. I'm convinced of it, because with all the things that you have to go through before the show gets on the air, somebody saw it. I guarantee you. It had to be.
Even the actor who it's right in front of you, you think they'd go, oh, wait, me, forsooth, made a mistake here. Can we shoot that? I should get rid of this.
Yeah, exactly. Put it in a brown ceramic mug or something.
Yeah, like, come on. You're right. I think sometimes they do that as a little wink and a nod.
Well, and what was it, the last episode too? Something like that?
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, I never watched it. It was in the last season, I think. So anyway.
Yeah.
That was my take on that.
So how did you get started in that? I mean, how do you find yourself from
doing props?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a long story, but I'll make it short.
No, take your time. You got plenty.
Right. So I did when I was in high school, and after I got out of high school, I did a lot of amateur theater in Vancouver, a little semi-professional theater, and that was my thing. I really enjoyed it, stage managing, designing lights. And a friend of mine said, "Why don't you go to the National Theater School to be, if you're going to go to the theater, if you're going to be in theater, you may as well learn the craft properly."
Sure.
So I spent 2 years in Montreal, the National Theater School. And the whole time I was at the school, you have to do every job. So you have to design lighting, you have to do props, you have to do sound, you have to do, at least once you have to do everything. And I'm the only person that I know of, again, who managed to get through all 2 years of the technical course without ever doing props, because I hated it. I thought that was a dumb thing. So I got out of theater school and got a job that I didn't like. And then on the same day, I got an offer to either work at a local theater that was just opening or as a scenic carpenter at the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And so this would have been late 79. And I took the job at CBC because it paid more, there were benefits, long-term stability, all those kinds of things.
Sure.
So I was building sets, and I was pretty good at building stuff that was easy, but not so good at the tricky stuff. And the guy who hired me, who's my friend's father, said, "Have you thought about set decoration?" And when somebody says, have you thought about something else, you know that you're not in the right spot. So I thought, well, okay, that sounds interesting. So I go into set decorating, and at the CBC, it's kind of a British model there. Props and set decoration are the same thing. So we would do both. And about a year after I was doing that, I got the opportunity to work on a show up here called Beachcombers. And I don't know if you're familiar with Beachcombers or
It
not.
sounds familiar.
It's in Canada, it would be like I Love Lucy to the Americans, or,
Okay.
you know, it's like an iconic show that ran for 30 years. And it was, they called it the best film school in Canada because everyone who went to work on Beachcombers had to go to Gibson's, which is a little town just north of here. You have to take a ferry to get there. We'd all stay in the little town all week and work on this show. That's all we did. So you learned every single part of the filmmaking business, which was great. It was a great experience. I learned, I mean, I operated a camera once. I, you know, helped out with lighting and sound, and of course did set decorating and props. I learned how to move things around on set. It was just the best learning experience ever. And the production manager on that show, Bob Frederick, who passed away, sadly, a couple of years ago, he was the production manager on that. And then after Beachcombers left, he left, and I went on to other things while it continued on. And Bob hired me on a couple of shows because we knew each other. So there was a natural sort of affiliation there. And I worked on this horrible, horrible movie that I won't mention in the winter of 85 to 86. And then after that show finished, Bob said, hey, there's a new show coming to town. Do you want to try it? And I'd never been a prop master, like a prop master on a IATSE show, which is, you know, like the professional
Big time kind of
show. And I said, great, what's it called? He said, it's called MacGyver. I said, nah, that sounds like fun. And now you got to remember, I mean, I'd already worked for about 5-6 years working on little shows at the CBC and being an assistant. MacGyver was my first real prop master show. And so talk about trial by fire. It's like the prop show of prop shows.
I was gonna say, no pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the good news is I was one of those kids who took everything apart and put it back together. So I was really good at that kind of stuff anyway. So that it just made it so much easier and so much more fun and natural to fall into. And actually a lot of the people, well, several of the people who were on the Beachcombers and other shows that Bob had worked with also got their first chance on MacGyver. My friend Pete Dashkowitz, that was his first time as a first assistant director. So it was really a great way to get people trained, and because the training was brutal. You know, you're working in a little town in the middle of nowhere. If you can't do it, there's no place to turn. So you learn to be resourceful. And yeah, there's still people out there that talk about Beachcombers as being either their favorite show to work on or the best film school they ever went to. So that was kind of my training.
So you came in right at the beginning when they moved to Vancouver.
Yes.
Because I saw the picture, which thankfully you shared on our Facebook page.
Oh, right, yes.
Which I love, was from Lost Love. From the flashback scene in Lost Love, where they're on the boat and they're all in the camouflage, and you're just about ready to push them out into the water.
That's right, yeah.
I'm trying to imagine what that must have been like. So you hadn't known of MacGyver before that?
Not really, no. I mean, I knew there was a show called MacGyver. You know, it had been on a year already, and so I kind of knew that it was there, but I didn't have any idea about what really I was in for. So
yeah, well, it's funny too, because I notice a lot of people who work on shows or in the business per se don't get to necessarily watch TV or movies. So because they're busy.
Well, yes.
That's a full
long hours.
job. Yeah, exactly. You're there till nighttime. Blah, 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 blah. When do you have time? By the time you get home, you just want to sleep.
It's true.
So
hey, can I tell you a little story about that?
Of course you can.
That picture that I sent. I'm assuming people have seen it, where I'm standing there and we're about to push the boat out there in the camouflage.
Yeah.
Part of that scene is the Russians are chasing them, and they start firing at them with their AK-47s as they're running down, trying to get MacGyver and his girlfriend as they're leaving. And that was the second unit day, actually. And so we had these guys who were all dressed in, the Soviet outfits, and they all had AK-47s. And I also, at the time, prop masters had to operate all the guns and teach the actors how to use the guns.
Okay.
And, make sure that they were holding it properly and all the safety and all that. So anyway, we're doing this, and a couple of the extras, they're doing a rehearsal, and they're running with their guns. And I'm looking at a couple of these guys thinking, there's something wrong. So I said, have you done this before? Like with, doing guns and stuff? He says, it's my first day as an extra. I said, well, what do you normally do? He says, well, I'm a librarian. And I'm thinking, this guy's got to be a Soviet soldier running, firing a fully automatic AK-47, trying to take out the bad guy. And he can barely even, convincingly run. That was, oh my God, that was,
Wow.
So now you've got to show the guy how to operate it, and he's scared of it. And it's, oh.
Oh, and I've seen many times on other shows where they won't even put the butt of the gun up to their shoulder.
Oh yeah, I know.
They'll tuck it under and go, and you can't do that. And if anybody's ever fired a gun knows there's kickback.
Yeah, well, there isn't as much with blanks. That's why they can do
Sure. Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, that gun isn't even moving when you fire it. Come on.
It's like even Schwarzenegger with with the 2 machine guns in each hand.
Yeah.
He'd be getting a little bit of kick. But,
Well, yeah, because it'd be doing that the whole time.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter how strong your arms are, your wrists are still,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like Uzis aren't forgiving at all.
None of them.
Man. So yeah, I was gonna ask, like, okay, so you start there and they say, besides being the prop master, you had to also be the guy on hand to push them out into the water. And
Right.
it's basically a what's the saying?
I'll tell you what the saying is. If they can't figure out what it is, it's a prop.
No, I was gonna say, like, your task isn't just, oh wait, we can't have him push the boat because he's the prop master. No, it's all hands on deck. What is it? Master of none.
Oh yeah, jack of all trades.
Thank you, jack of all trades. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it's at that time it was a little bit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Today, it's much more specialized. There's a lot more people who have, like, for instance, in that scene, there would have been a boat wrangler and they would have looked after it. So yeah, back in those days, you could do a little bit of that, but jurisdiction-wise, people are a little fussier now. Back then, and again, that was a second unit day, so it was a smaller unit. So there was, people had to pitch in more on something like that than they would on the main unit. So
was it the second unit because it was a flashback? Is that the idea?
No, it's because they ran out of time on main unit.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But still, it all comes together if you got,
Oh yeah, you never know. Well, and like all the hand movements, when he'd be doing all that's all done second unit. You should have Bill Nikolai on.
I have.
Oh, you have? Oh, great.
Bill,
Good.
yeah. Oh, yeah, he would
good.
share those stories too, because
Yeah.
he's another great one who reached out. And
I worked more with Bill than I did with RDA, I think.
Really?
Well, because I have to do the second unit as well. So actually, that's one of the thing about MacGyver that is unlike any other episodic show that I've ever heard of, and I'm willing to be, told I'm wrong, but I'm on a website with all kinds of people on crews. MacGyver is the only show I know of that had 2 prop masters that alternated episodes.
Who is the other?
Well, it was Grant Swain did the other half of the ones that we did up here. So of all the episodes done in Vancouver, I did half plus one because I did the pilot, which was a 2-parter. First episode, I can't remember what it's called. Had the Jade Dragon in it.
Yeah, no, that was Lost Love. That was
all part. Okay, well, there you go.
Same
so
one.
that was a 2-parter. So I did both of those. So I think I did 47 episodes up here, and because it was back then. I mean, now you can kind of get away with it because there's so many more resources. But back then there were 2 of us, and we had no internet. So and the props were it's a very prop heavy show. So they had 2 of us alternating. And then on the days when I wasn't shooting, I would be not just prepping, but also doing the second unit from the previous episode. And then eventually I got my own second unit person, and that's all they did.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So pretend I'm an idiot and explain explain for all who may not know specifically, what does a prop master do? Only because I could tell we're rolling, and all of a sudden I could hear someone go, "Wait a minute, I don't quite know what a prop." You think it's self-explanatory?
Yeah, there's more to it for sure. So I guess the best way to describe it is to say what I actually do day to day, and that might be. So the first thing you do is you get a script. The script is the Bible for everything. It's got all the information you need in there. You read the script, and then you break it down scene by scene. And you make a list of which props are in which scene. And I always tell people that a really good prop master is the one who knows all the props that are not in the script. So for instance, it says, Mac's lawyer comes to visit him. Well, great. no props there, right? Well, no, he's got a
Yeah,
briefcase, he's got
briefcase.
a watch, he's got a ring, he might have a pair of glasses, it's all that other stuff, right? So
Yeah.
those are all little bits that get added after, but that comes later. So you make a list, you get it all sorted, scene by scene. How many, what are you going to build? What are you going to buy? What are you going to make? What are you going to steal? What are you going to borrow from your mom, which I did once. So you got your list, you got your breakdown, and then you go into your prop meeting with the director and the producers and the writer, and you go through the scene in excruciating detail. I mean, because it's the one chance you have to get all the information, and all the people with the information are there.
Right.
You spend maybe 3 hours at a prop meeting just going through the script, and now you know what you need. Now you know what the director wants, what color things are, and all the rest of it. And you go off and you start procuring. You start, finding them, making phone calls, going to the library, because that's what we did back then. And just trying to track down all the stuff that's on your list. And of course I had an assistant who was a buyer, or actually I had an assistant who was an assistant on set, and then an assistant in the office who was a buyer, and the buyer was responsible for a lot of just the regular, buying of things that you need. We need another Swiss Army knife. So I would manage all the buying and the purchasing and the building of the props. And then I would also have to manage making sure that all the props were labeled properly, because when you go on set, it all has to be put into either bags with a label, the scene number, the character, boxes full of props with, bigger things that you would need. If you were doing, say, a tea party, you'd have your tea set, and you'd have 2 of them, because you have to have, at least 2 for everything, and you have that in a box. It's all marked. So you're doing this throughout your whole prep period, getting things, putting them into bags, marking them up, aging them down. Tell you another funny story about aging. These are all MacGyver stories, don't worry. And then when the show is on your last day of prep, which is the last day of shooting for the previous episode, you unload the one show and load the other one on. And the 2 prop masters, it's kind of like, ships passing in the night. They go on to prep. Now all my stuff is on the truck and we're ready to shoot. So, I mean, that's kind of basically how the job goes. But in terms of what's considered a prop, most of it's pretty obvious, but some of it is what I call a negotiation. Because you use the example of a lamp. Well, a lamp is a piece of set decoration. The bulb that goes in it is provided by lighting. So it's not really a prop. But if somebody picks it up and hits somebody with it, now it's a prop.
Right. Well, that's I was going to say Swiss Army knife. I thought that's too obvious.
Yeah, it is too obvious. I'm sorry. It's the first thing that came to my mind.
Right.
So a prop is pretty much anything that an actor handles or touches.
Okay.
Jewelry is often a prop, but sometimes costumes will want to do it. Things like hats. Sometimes, if it's a magician's hat, obviously the prop guy does it. If it's just a guy in a fedora, then the costume department would do that. Same with canes. There's sort of a crossover between, does it match the outfit? And I'd have to get together with the costume designer to make it sure that it fits the character and the wardrobe. A lot of times, if you have breakaway glasses, so you might have a bar full of breakaway glasses. Well, it's a set decorator's job to dress it all, but it's my job to provide specific breakaway ones.
Okay.
License plates is a weird one. That for some reason is a prop. So we look after all the license plates.
Okay.
If you think about it, we're shooting a show that's made in California in BC.
Right.
So every car has to have its license plate changed.
Or like with MacGyver with his grandfather's truck, it had to be Minnesota.
That's right. And we did one in, I can't remember what country they were in, Austria or Germany or something. So we had to get German plates for the cars. So that's our job as well.
Now, how does that, do you have to make it yourself, or do you have to actually go find somebody's old, German license?
Okay. Well, that's an interesting story, because you cannot just go and use somebody's license plate.
Right.
Every license plate number has to be okayed by the legal department, because it has to be one that's never been used by a person or will be used by a person. California DMV has an entire list of approved license plate numbers for every kind of vehicle, from diplomat to Army to transport vehicles. And I used to have a kit full of California. I had about 100 California license plates, all cleared, many of them doubles. And there's a company in LA that makes license plates just for the movies. And there's actually there's one company in Vancouver that does it now. There was a company in Vancouver that made license plates for real, like real license plates, but they would make them for us. They don't do it anymore. I think they got in trouble legally, maybe. But for a lot of it, it's just, for instance, the big European ones, we might just put that on cardboard if it was easy.
Sure.
You don't want, if it's just a background card. If you're
I was
driving
gonna say, if
around,
it's
rainy,
in the
then
background,
you
nobody's
don't-
gonna look.
Yeah, it's actually a bit of a bugaboo with me because I watch shows and I can say, oh God, there's that Earl Hayes pressed, stupid looking plastic license plate.
I'm the same way, and I'm not even in that.
There you
Like,
go.
you just, if you notice something, it drives you nuts.
You know, there's actually a website, a whole website. It's like the MacGyver website, except it's about license plates in movies.
I think I've seen it. I've probably have scrolled through it.
Yeah, yeah. So so that's a whole lot. And then of course you have to get the decals made, the specific decal for the specific year and the color and it's
I'm telling you, that's why I'm saying unsung hero, because that is so much tedious work, but it matters.
The details are crazy.
But it matters because subconsciously or consciously, you're going to notice if it is or isn't right.
It's true. It's true.
And it drives you nuts when you see people who cut corners.
Yeah. Well, the big one with license plates is a lot of states only require it on the back. And if you don't do your research, then you put it on both ends and people are going, oh, okay, this is not right.
Yep. I've seen that too, even with like motorcycles.
Yes.
I've seen them do that wrong. And I'm like,
oh, really?
Yeah, sure. They'll put it on the front. You're like, it's not World War II. You didn't have to.
Exactly.
Because those motorcycles, you had to, at the time. But yeah, not in 1980s. It wasn't called.
Anyway, but to bring it up to date, we do all the computers and cell phones. We have people that program cell phones to ring a certain way at a certain time and text messages and all that stuff. That all has to be programmed into the computer or the phone.
So somebody's there, and when they're on cue, they just hit a button and it rings?
Well, no, you set it up on the actual phone. You push a button and with either it'll happen immediately or a 10-second delay or 3-second delay, whatever you choose.
Yeah.
The only exception to that is if you get permission from Apple, and they're pretty good about it, you can use their software. So you can actually, like on this one show we had, there was a lot of cell phones. So we bought SIM cards. They all had their own phone number. So somebody offset would just phone them. And then the screen would look correct because in their phone, my phone number is the character that's phoning me, right? So the name comes up, whatever you want it to be. But we have to do all that, get them all programmed and put in the SIM cards and make sure that's all working properly.
And then you have to catalog all this stuff, right? Like any sort of prop, you don't just go, all right, there it is, and then walk away. You have to actually catalog it and then store it afterwards, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. We especially when you're working on a series, you have to store it all between seasons,
Especially when it comes back. You didn't know that one pocket knife was going to show up.
Never throw anything away. Because I can't tell you the number of times they want to do a flashback where they'll say, "Oh, do you remember that thing we had in season 2? If that could be on the desk," and it's like now season 7, right?
Yep.
So yeah, you do, and you got to know where all that is, and it's got to be kept in shape. So.
And did you have like I assume you had a warehouse that stored all that.
You always have a lockup, and
you're the guy in charge of going, I know where that is, and then run and get it.
Well, actually, nowadays there's usually a person designated to do that on bigger shows. So, the prop master has so many things to think about that those kinds of details are often left to the assistants. The first assistant who works on set will often be the one who will catalog and put all those things away. And then they make a master list, which everyone has access to. So we always know where everything is.
And and I know I'm stating the obvious, but you don't get to dilly-dally on that. Like, this is a week-to-week show. Go, 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 go. And then once you're done, start it all again.
It's kind of like a truck going downhill with no brakes.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't hit anything, you're fine, right? The truck can keep going. But as soon as there's an obstacle, then everything grinds to a halt, and the producers start looking at you because it's costing money, and it's
time. Time is money.
Well, yeah, time. Yeah, absolutely. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour on a film set.
Have you had situations where all of a sudden they decided to go in a different direction, and now you're like, oh crap, and then you got to run and get something?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time. Actually, what happens more frequently is an actor will be in rehearsal and think, oh, you know what? It'd be great if I was holding a medieval lance. Right? So now you got your assistant in the truck with a piece of doweling and wrapping rope around it and fashioning his tip out of styrofoam and spray paints, and he runs back out and
how about this?
That happens quite. Oh, you know what? I should be eating a sandwich in this scene. So you got to run to craft service and start making sandwiches because you need 20 of them. It happens all the time.
I remember I had Holly Fields on, who I've known for years, and we had planned on having her on, and she was on the episode Runners. And it's a very personal, it lets you know a lot about MacGyver's backstory.
All right. Remind me again the episode?
Runners. Runners was season 4. MacGyver is at a conference with Pete where they're trying to set up a TV display. And Holly plays this teenager who's a hooker who approaches MacGyver and is trying to like, you want a little company?
Yeah.
And he basically is trying to help her.
Right.
Well, I bring it up because in the one scene, he brings her back to his place to look after her. And she wears his jersey and he is making her banana pancakes. And she was telling me, yeah, he was making banana pancakes for me and they were delicious. And she still remembers the taste of it.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it was sweet because he, being who he is, looked out for her and stayed close to her through the years too.
Really?
They were she sent me a text with a picture last year going, I'm in Australia. Look who's sitting next to me. And it's her and Rick. But I was thinking about it, like the pots and pans you had to have there.
Yeah. So props also, that's a big one. We deal with all the food and drink.
Yeah.
So nowadays we have food stylists. So a scene like that, I would call somebody in, like a specialist at doing food for the movies.
Really?
Because when I say food stylist, you immediately think of commercials with beautiful looking, hamburgers and, things oozing. And often on TV shows, you're making banana pancakes or you're making something that's not supposed to look good or beans over a campfire. And we would have to look after that. And what it means often is setting up a small kitchen just off set. Because, the actor may pour the pancake batter in and cut up the bananas, but you better have 40 bananas already cut up behind the scenes, and you better have 6 pans that are already heated so he can put, exactly. Yep. So there's a lot of that goes on. And that becomes almost, I always say it's almost like operating guns. When you operate a gun on set, that has to be your only focus.
Sure.
And with food, because it's such a big deal, it becomes a big focus. Not just in terms of continuity and making sure everything is there, but it has to be food safe. People are going to eat this stuff. You can't just be doing it on, on an apple box or on a grip stand somewhere.
Right.
So that's why we now have food stylists that come in and they can not only style the food to look like what you want it to look, good, bad, or indifferent, but they also understand continuity. So you'll say, okay, this guy is halfway through eating. So they'll make it look like he's halfway through eating. Or, this guy is going to just take one bite. So we better have a lot of this one thing ready. And they understand that. So.
That's smart because there's a great Columbo website, and one of their tabs is look at the continuity mistakes. And it is a lot of time where the drink started here, they turn away, and now it's down here because they had done a couple takes.
Can I just say something before you go any further on continuity? And I want everybody in the world to know this. Rarely is it the prop master or the set decorator's fault.
Right.
It's usually done on purpose in editing. And
really?
I'll give you a classic example. You can watch this episode of MacGyver. It's the one, I think it's called Osiris, where he falls off a parkade and he lands in a car and he goes into a coma.
Oh no, season 4, yeah.
Yeah, right. So he's in bed and he keeps having heart problems. So they have to rush in and give him stuff and defibrillate him.
Yep.
And all of that stuff we do as well. We do all the medical supplies. And of course, it starts off, the bed is made, he's lying there, very calm. And then the crew rushes in, all the medical personnel, and they pull the sheets back, they defibrillate him. And then, his flashback goes on, and then you come back, and it's been 5 minutes since you've seen him, but it's 10 seconds later in MacGyver time because the whole dream takes just a minute. So every time you flash back, it's literally a second after the last time you saw him.
Sure.
So we had these sheets on him, and as the scene goes on, the sheets progressively come further off and get more and more rustle as he flails around, and doctors are working on him. Well, what they did in editing, and we were so anal about getting the sheets right. Okay, they're just here, they're just at his feet, they're over there. We did it perfectly. And then in editing, they mixed all those scenes around. So the scene near the end where they were doing something, they put near the beginning, and the scene that they had at the beginning, just these little, they would do at the end. So all the sheets were all over the place. It didn't matter. And that drove me crazy. So So like I say, the water bottle thing they could have done it perfectly, but they liked one take that happened later, or
Right. That's what I thought too. Passages is the name of the episode.
Right.
That you're funny. You're right. You're right though, because the Osiris thing runs through it and then comes back in the next season.
That's yes.
Which is the Eye of Osiris.
That's right.
So end of season 5, and that was a heck of an episode too. Like you
tell me about it.
I watch it now, and I'm watching it with the family, and it's still very emotional. And it's also one of those where you're going to get into the guts of what MacGyver is about. You don't always get that. It's normally not about him, but in this, you're going to get to see his parents, and his grandfather dies, and
the one that really got me was, I don't remember what it was called, but it was the one, it was at Christmas, and we find out why.
The Madonna.
Yeah.
The Madonna, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a tearjerker.
Rick Drew and I cried over that when he was on.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, because he, he wrote it, and we were talking about the scene, and to have him, that whole ice cream, and
get so emotional about it, yeah.
Right, and I'll tell you, we watch that every Christmas. Every Christmas time. It's like it became our tradition, because a couple years ago, I'm like, kids, you got to watch this. It's the only Christmas MacGyver episode.
Yeah.
And they loved it so much, and it was so emotional. They were like, my son Mikey goes, can we watch it every year around Christmas time? I'm like,
so instead of Wonderful Life, you watch.
No, that comes too.
Oh, okay, all right.
But you're right. That is a gut punch.
Yeah, no, it is, and you find out with the whole thing with his mom, and boy.
I said to Rick, True, you know what I wish they had done another one afterwards, because you got to assume Christmas was not the happiest time for MacGyver up until that point, but at that episode, he comes to grips with it. So you want to see him enjoy anything afterwards Christmassy, and I always wish they had done.
You know, I've worked on a number of series, and there's only one that I can think of, maybe two, no, one, where they didn't do a Christmas episode at some point. And it's usually I mean, I'm not a writer, so I'm not in the writer's room all the time, but I've been told by other writers that it's often, particularly with the showrunner and the network, it's often a battle. Do we do a Christmas show? And if we do, how are we going to do it? Is this going to be like a show episode that's true to the story, or are we going to take people out of it and show them a different side? It doesn't come easily, the Christmas shows, as you might think.
Sure.
And that's why that one on MacGyver was so great, because you discover something really important about him.
Yeah. Oh, well, and
you don't want to do it just because it's Christmas.
Right. And you could tell the shows that have done that, like sitcoms in particular, are brutal. Like
bring in the Christmas tree and have some fun with eggnog and
And Family Ties, I remember, as much as I loved the show when it was on, that was one of those where you go, oh, because it feels ham-fisted. It doesn't feel natural. Yeah. And the ones that do it well, you go, okay, no, this feels like it's Christmassy and it's Christmas time, but you don't feel, like you said, you're not pulled out of the you're not pulled out of the show. Yeah. And that, like, it enhances it when it's done right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Christmas to begin with, but a good Christmas movie.
But like Halloween, they did a few Halloween ones on MacGyver, which I loved.
Oh,
right.
Well, it lends itself so well.
Yeah. Well, especially when the first one that you do is with Murdoch.
Oh,
that's that was great, because they had to team up on that one. So and then to do, what was the next one? The one was with Dr. Zito. Lessons in Evil was the name of it, and basically it's a sequel to one from the 4th season. So now it's the 6th season, and MacGyver goes in to testify into court. Well, Dr. Zito escapes, and he starts calling MacGyver. It's very like Dr. Zito is inspired by the Silence of the Lambs, Anthony Hopkins kind of character.
That might have been somebody else's episode.
Probably, because you'd remember, because it's very, very Silence of the Lambsy, but also he's calling him all the time, giving him clues, and he has to try and track,
Right.
But yeah, when they would do those, you didn't feel like it was unnecessary. You go, okay, no, this is good. We get to see, what does MacGyver do on Halloween, or
I'll tell you that Murdoch, Michael DeBars, he was great.
Isn't he? Got to meet him and go back and forth with him on social media. I'm trying to get him on the podcast when he's not busy, because he's DJing besides anything else. Yeah, he DJs on Little Nicky's rock concert or something. It's one of the Sirius radio stations.
Okay.
But yeah, he's great. And he was
Yeah.
great to me and my son and wife when we met
He's
him
a lovely man.
a
Yeah.
couple years ago. Yeah, yeah. And he was great because he was telling me about the one, and this might tie into what you were going to tell me about aging props. Serenity, the episode from the 5th season where MacGyver has a dream that he's a cowboy, one of the
Okay,
first of the
that
two.
is my aging story.
See? And he was saying how cold it was filming that, and you could see the smoke coming out of their mouth.
Well, that was done in Calgary, just outside of Calgary.
And he was saying, thank God he had that leather on because that's what kept
Yeah.
him warm.
Oh, but what he probably didn't tell you about was the scene where he had to pull out his gun, and you know how they cock the
Bam,
gun,
bam,
and bang, bang.
Yeah.
That was a tough one for him because guns aren't meant to, you know how they pull the trigger, bang, bang, bang.
Sure.
Guns aren't designed to do that. That's
Right.
something that you have to be really good at, and the gun has to be tweaked a certain way. And so it was hard to get it right. And in one of the takes, you talk about his leather pants.
Yeah.
He tried to pull the gun out, and he fired it while it was still in the holster.
Oh.
And he yelled and jumped and said, "Oh my God!" And we thought, and then we looked, and it was a little burn mark on his leather, but it didn't hurt him. So,
Ooh.
yeah, that was
Wow.
rough.
He was telling me about how he was afraid of snakes.
Oh,
And for that Halloween episode.
let me tell you that story.
Go ahead.
So I am more afraid of snakes than I am of dying of anything. I mean, a little garter snake goes by, and I run for the hills screaming like a little girl.
It's okay.
So we have this episode with what we call the pit o' snakes.
Mhm.
And so our wrangler, the animal wrangler, gets 200 snakes from Florida. They had them FedExed in, if you can believe that. FedEx actually lost the package for a while. So anyway, we get the snakes. They put the snakes in the pit, and Steve Laylock, who's the MacGyver stunt double, did the scene with the close up of the snakes and everything. But at one point, they had to tie what they call it tying in, where Murdoch is on MacGyver's shoulders,
Mhm.
protecting him as he walks through the pit o' snakes. Well, Michael is scared to death of snakes like I am. So for a lot of that day, we sat on a ladder, like up, about 3 or 4 steps above everyone else, just in case a snake came by, because a couple of them got out. We were both so scared of snakes. So we get to talking. And he has lots of tattoos. And he says, "What tattoos do you have?" I said, "I don't have any." He says, "You got to get a tattoo." He said, "What do you like?" I said, "Well, I really like penguins. That's my thing. I collect penguins." He says, "You got to get a penguin tattoo." I said, "Oh, my wife would kill me." So I go home that night, tell my wife. She says, "Yeah, great, get a penguin tattoo." The next day, 2 days later, I make an appointment. I go in, I get the tattoo. I come back to set. I show it to Michael. He was so happy that he was the one that got me to do it. And now I've got a bunch of them, but that was my first one, from me and Michael hiding on the ladder from the snakes.
Where'd you do it? On your shoulder?
On
On
my
your
arm
arm?
here, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's typically the beginning place to get one.
That's where, yeah. And it actually was. Have you seen the picture of that episode that I put online?
Oh, yeah, where it's everybody that worked on it.
Yeah, it's like an impromptu montage. Yeah,
That's a great picture.
Henry Winkler's in that, and Charlie Corral, one of our directors. So that's my favorite photo from that show.
They were. I saw a clip of Entertainment Tonight was there filming during the production of that, and it's Henry saying, you know why we keep doing this show? Because of these guys.
Yeah,
because of Rick and everybody who's involved. These guys have the heart, and they're a reason for, because it's hard. It's a lot of work.
It is. And you know what? I got to say, I mentioned Steve Downing earlier. It starts at the top. I mean, Steve is such a great showrunner, executive producer, just a kind man. Can I tell you a little Steve Downing story?
Always.
The episode where they had the rhino hunters.
Sure.
So we built this rhinoceros. Well, actually, somebody in LA built the fake rhinoceros. And there's a line in the episode where MacGyver says, somebody asked him, they say, "Well, why would somebody want to cut off a rhinoceros's horn?" And he says, "Oh, well, they use them for making knife handles in, I think it was Yemen or somewhere,
as a sign of fertility.
As a sign, as a rite of passage for young men. They get this knife with the rhino horn." So MacGyver explains this, and he goes, "Isn't that sick?" Because it is. So I'm in Steve Downing's office I need to talk to him about something. I can't remember what it was, and he was already on the phone, and he's yelling and he's screaming like I've never seen him like this. Can I swear on there?
Yeah, go ahead.
"You fucking guy, you can't fire it." And he was just and he slammed the phone down and threw it across the room. Now you met Steve on the that does not sound like Steve, does it?
No.
I've never seen him do this before. I said, we're all like, what happened? He says, fucking network. They insisted that he cut out the line that says, isn't that sick? Because they didn't want to offend anyone.
Ah, see, that's the perfect reason to offend somebody. That's
I said, that's the point of the episode, is to offend those people.
Yep.
Oh, it was just, and they got letters actually after that show complaining about killing a rhinoceros just for the show.
Yep. And it's an amazing job because that rhino looks real.
Oh, even on set, we're like, oh God, you start to shed a tear when it started moving.
It's making that noise, and you can see it cut off. It does, which is a tribute to everybody that had to do with that.
Yeah, exactly. But the idea that you would take the one line that really explains how horrible this is, and that's the line that gets cut. He was so mad.
Well, what about the first episode of or technically second episode of the 4th season with the gun, where it explains the flashback?
Oh, it goes all the way back.
Yeah. Like that episode alone is famous because the NRA was like, wait a minute, you can't say guns are bad. And then, yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
They are.
You're right. You
know. Right. Hang on, give me 2 seconds. I got to close this curtain. It's blinding me like crazy.
Right, yeah.
Oh, there we go. I'm looking at myself and I'm like, that can't be easy for anybody watching this. I'm just a big white
blur. A little overexposed.
Yeah. But tell me, what was the story? Go ahead. You were going to say.
Oh, the story about the aging.
Yes.
On the Western episode. Mm-hmm. So there's a scene where MacGyver goes into the general store and he's buying supplies because he's new in town. He buys a bunch of stuff, and one of them is a rope to make into a lasso or a lariat, depending on your
how fancy you want to sound.
So we're shooting the scene, and Mike Greenberg comes up and he goes, Pat, the rope, it's shiny, it's brand new. He said, this is the 1860s, you got to age it. And I'm saying, well, no, but Mike, he's buying it. It is new. Right. Like there was stuff in the 1860s that was new and has to look new. And he kind of thought about it. He goes, oh yeah, I guess you're right.
You're right, because I've always caught that. He does. He goes into the store and is buying supplies. He buys new boots for Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character and all that. And I remember him grabbing the rope and thinking, no, that looks real. That looks like it's brand new, because it's brand new. If you just made it and brought it to the general store.
Yeah.
Well, what about, speaking of aging, how about the wooden Swiss Army knife?
Yes.
How did that come about?
The actual Swiss, how did they decide on it?
Well, how did you? Okay, they say he has to have a Swiss Army knife. He's going to be handed this knife. Did you have to go find one that was wooden like that on the sides?
Oh, we made that.
Okay, that's what I thought.
We made that, yeah.
So how?
Took it to a prop maker. Said, here, make a wooden handle. See you tomorrow.
And stick it on, and it just sticks on both sides. And then you had to splinter it when the bullet hits it.
Right. Yeah. So we have a saying in props. One is none. So if you just have a simple prop like a watch or something, you get 2 of them just in case something happens. Yep. In a case like that, where something's going to get chipped and nicked, we probably had half a dozen, maybe 10.
Really? Wow.
Because you got to go back and forth, right? And sometimes what will happen is you'll have, well, in a scene like that, I don't remember the whole episode, to be honest with you.
Murdoch shoots him, and when he gets up and they think he's dead, he pulls out.
Oh, right, and it chips the thing. Yeah, right. But you might see it later on in the episode, still chipped, but now it's a little more chipped because he's used it. So you've got maybe 3 or 4 different versions of it being aged as the episode goes along. Because you don't shoot it in order, obviously, right? So you might hand him the last one that's aged for this scene, and then the next scene you hand him the new one because
you're doing the first scene
before that. So yeah, so you have various degrees of aging for various props. So like that.
I have a listener to the shows, Cliff Bruno, who I've had the pleasure of meeting, and he's big into Swiss Army knives.
Right.
Vitrinox Society and all this.
Oh, really? Oh.
And he's been kind enough. If you look, there's right there is the MacGyver escape room game.
Oh, okay.
He sent that to me with a whole bunch of Vitrinox stuff, and he's done it before. One of them that he sent me because he knew how much I wanted one of those wooden knives.
Yeah.
Vitrinox sells one that looks.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he said, well, here you go. And I thought, okay, if this is as close as I'm getting to that actual knife,
Right.
I'll take it because it's real wood. It's not like plastic that looks like wood.
No.
But that's a heck of an item.
It is. We got them for free from Victorinox.
I remember seeing a picture where it said MacGyver on them.
Yeah. Oh, the one with MacGyver on it?
Where it was like an anniversary episode or something for like
that was the biggest disappointment for me in the whole 4 years I worked on the show. They the publicist, it's Steve Downing's wife, and her name is escaping me now. Another lovely, lovely lady. She came to me and she said, "Listen, we're going to give away the Swiss Army knife, and we've got to buy 400 of them because there's all the crew in Vancouver, there's all the crew in LA, and there's the network people. Everybody wants one." I said, "Great, I'm going to call Victorinox and I'm going to get you deals." She says, "Okay." So I called Victoria. "Oh, this is great," and they were going to be engraved in MacGyver. I think it was 100th episode or something.
Yep.
And she calls. She says, "Never mind. We got a much better deal." I said, "Okay." I said, "Where are you getting them from?" She says, "Oh, it's a supplier in LA, and they're all being made in LA and everything." I said, "You sure? Because I can get these for almost super cheap."
Yeah.
"Oh no, it's all taken care of." We get the knife, and not only is it not a Victorinox, it's the cheapest version of a Swiss Army knife you've ever seen in your life. The color is different. The blades are chintzy. It was just a piece of crap.
Yep.
I thought, you're going to give 400 of these things away, and they're not even the real thing. It was so disappointing.
I don't blame you.
Adrian was her name, yeah.
Especially when you had the connection.
I know, and it's so iconic.
It's the official one.
Exactly, yeah. I said, you might as well have given him a little crushed roll of gaffer tape. That would, or duct tape. That would have been better.
Do you remember the hardest episode for you as far as like
the hardest? Well, probably the hardest episode was the first one
because you were new.
Because I was new and we had that dragon to make. That was quite a thing to do.
And a lot of them too, because they were up.
And a lot of them because it had to break. And yeah.
Exactly. And even when he goes into the store, there's a whole bunch that he's.
There's a whole bunch of them. Exactly. Yeah. That's true.
And it's funny because when I look at it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the real one kind of stands out a little more than like when he runs in and puts the real one on the shelf and takes the knockoff one, it looks like that was intentional. Like instead of just making 12 of the same thing, did you make, by any chance, if you remember, the real one looking a little shinier?
No, that was an accident that we were happy about.
Okay.
In the end.
Because you know what I mean.
I do.
Yeah.
See, the problem is that the real one was poured with a type of resin that looks like jade, and it's very tricky to get right. You have a lot of rejects that you get, so it's kind of expensive to do that. The other ones were made out of a material that was easier to get out of the mold, and they could fire them off, a bunch of them. And I said, make it look as close as and they made it look as close as they could. But in the end, it turned out, like you say, to be a happy accident because it was, it was just a little bit off. So
yeah, that's funny. It's one of those. Every time I watch that episode, I'm like, no, if I walked into that store, I think I'd be able to grab the real one.
Yeah, right.
Because in the end, he goes to get the real one and goes, it's this one.
Right.
I think it's that. Wait. Oh, that's funny. How about your favorite episode? Do you remember, like, as far as working on it?
Favorite episode?
Or more than one, whatever. I mean, whatever one's basically meant the most to you.
I bet if I went through a list of them, I would pick it out easily. I'm just trying to think back on all the episodes that I actually did. Probably the Western one was fun because we got to travel and it was completely different, obviously. Because
it really did. That was bizarre. I mean, I love it. I love it. But imagine first time seeing it, going, why is he in the Wild West and he has a giant mustache? And
well, that was a great mustache story by Steve Downing too, because it was without the mustache, it wouldn't have worked as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Because originally he wasn't going to have the mustache.
No, and then Steve tried to talk him out of it, and then he insisted, and then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, it's got to be that way.
That's great.
But that was a lot of fun, just because it was so much different.
Did you do both Western episodes? Because there was the MacGyver's Women, which was the sequel. Yeah, which besides being gutsy enough to do a Western episode, you did two. Like that, to go back to that and still have it be like exciting and say, "Oh, we get to catch up with Western MacGyver."
Well, I'll tell you what the best part about that was in that picture that you see of me next to the boat to push the boat out. On the other side is Neil Macleod. He was my assistant. Neil is a cowboy. He's literally, he raises horses. He does, like, you know, the cattle roping and all. I mean, he is an actual cowboy. So he knows. If you want to know something about the from 1850 to the end of the century in America, ask Neil. He'll know. He'll know the right gun, the right kind of rope, the right way to tie it, how to saddle a horse. He knows all of it. So having him as my assistant, he was almost the prop master on the show.
Yeah,
because he just did it all and he loved it. So that made it a little bit easier. For sure.
Well, you know, I'm just warning you now. I know there's going to be times in the future where I'm going to be coming to you with questions.
Sure.
Only because, you know, we're talking now, but I know there's certain things that I went, what about in that episode? Because some of the props I always wonder about. Like, I'm thinking, okay, it's natural for us to just go, yeah, he owned that or whatever. But I always love to know, like, the origin. Like you said, sometimes you'd have to borrow, steal, and take from your mother. Do you remember what the item was that you took from your mother?
Absolutely. It was the episode with the wrestler whose name escapes me now. He was in jail and he gets out. It's a friend of MacGyver's.
Oh, yeah. Actually, Jim, the actor's name, because he did 3 of them, right? You're talking about the guy who is in the 100th episode, Harry's Will. And then he comes back. Is this what I'm thinking of? Where he ends up being, he tries to be a boxer in the 3rd.
Oh, no. That was I know who you mean.
Yeah, Jim Buckus.
No, Dick Buckus was
Dick Buckus, that's it.
Dick Buckus was in the one where we had all the cameos.
Are you talking about the 3rd season? Is this the 3rd?
No,
okay.
The boxer was Randall Tex Cobb.
Yes.
He was something else.
That's who I thought you were. Okay.
No, the wrestler, I'm trying to remember his name. He was a very well-known, or maybe it was Dick Buckus and they made him a wrestler or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, in the end of the boxing one, he ends up taking a job as a wrestler. So maybe that's where your mind, because it was 7th. No, that was 7th season. You weren't on there at that point.
Anyway, the point of the story is that there's this big, burly, muscular guy coming out of jail, and in his hand he's holding a binder full of recipes.
Oh, that's the 100th episode. That's Harry's Will. Yes, he passed away soon after that. I know what you're talking about. Yes. Yeah. He goes after Abe Vigoda's character.
Okay. I'll believe you. That recipe book was my mom's recipe book.
Really?
Yeah, because she had one of those books. It was the way it's described in the script it's all these recipes he's collected because he cooked. That was his thing in jail. He cooked. So I thought, oh, Mom's got one exactly like that. So I put it, and that was the one.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I like to throw things into it.
Well, yeah, and it's personal too. You're like, that's my mother's.
Exactly.
Did she get a kick out of that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
At first she said, why would they want my old recipe book? It's all, it's a mess. And trust me, Mom, this is exactly what they want.
Yeah. They're not really going to be going through it and cooking.
No.
It's just for a sight thing. Don't worry about it.
I'll tell you the hardest prop, the one prop that I kind of didn't find was in the episode, the hockey episode. And the Mac's old friend is the coach.
Yep.
And his character was in the 1964 American men's ice hockey team. The only time before, was it 84? The only time they had won the gold medal. So the character had in the ice rink on a pedestal his gold medal from the Olympics from that year. So I found a picture of it at the library. And I thought, how the hell am I going to get this thing? So I phoned the Olympic Committee in Denver. And they said, well, as it just so happens that one of the scouts for the Vancouver Canucks was on that team. Phone them. So I'm in Vancouver. I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is getting closer. This is good. Phone the Canucks, talk to their media guy, Darcy Rhoda, who's an ex-player. He says, oh, yeah, no, I know the guy. He's a scout. He lives in Minneapolis. Thinking, okay, well, I really want to get his gold medal. Can you help me? He says, sure. He gets on the phone. He phones the guy. He says, hi, it's Darcy from the, oh, yeah, how are you doing? Great. I said, I got a guy here from MacGyver. And he wants to use your gold medal as a prop on the show. Well, we must have talked to him for half an hour. I was going to insure it for $1 million. I was going to do everything. We couldn't get him to ship it to us. I said, why don't you come with it? You can go. He couldn't come. He was working. He couldn't. We did everything we could. I mean, I found the freaking medal, and now the guy won't give it up.
Yeah.
And we're well into prep by now. So it's like, oh, now time's getting short. So I go back to my prop making people who made the dragon and everything else. I said, can you guys make this? And they did.
Wow. Because you
So
know what?
when you see it, it's gold leafed. And the good news about it, if you see that metal in close up, the part, often they're very shiny because they're gold plated and everything. Well, this particular one, it was very rough all the way around. For some reason, that was the design. So it worked because it was easy to make one and it didn't have to be perfect.
Huh.
So that was the one thing that I found but couldn't get.
That's something because it's the episode was Thin Ice.
Yes.
And I remember them looking over and making a big deal. It's in a case
Yeah.
above the ice hockey rink, and they're talking about it. And wow, can you imagine ever winning one of these?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and I thought it was real. I thought it was the real thing.
Great.
Right? Because you're right. If they come off, if they come off too smooth, sometimes you go,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
because there's going to be texture.
Exactly. And people have handled it. So, you get fingerprints and all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
and over what, decades, if that was supposed to be.
Exactly. At that point, 40 years almost.
So yeah, good job with whoever made that bad boy.
Yeah. And people made the Jade Dragon.
Exactly. Oh, that had to have been a monster because it's swirling. It's not just one solid thing.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Somebody actually carved that out of clay, and then made a mold from it. Made a couple molds, and then did the castings from that. Yeah.
Good stuff. And you could tell it feels fragile by the look of it.
It was.
Yeah.
We had these special boxes built with foam and everything in them. So yeah.
Man.
And especially the breakaway one, because it had to be really fragile.
Right. It would suck if he goes to break it and it doesn't break.
And
Like,
it bounces off
good job, guys.
We had a rubber one made too. The rubber one was unbreakable, and it didn't look quite great, but it was anytime he had to run around with it or do something, then we give him the rubber one. And
that's exactly. I was just about to ask you because I thought if it's that fragile, where I'm nervous even just looking at it, for him to be running through the parade trying to run from these guys, I'm like, how did he not break that? Well, that's why
he couldn't.
All right, so yeah, I'm sure of it. As a matter of fact, I will be asking you things down the road.
Sure.
And you're always welcome back on.
Yeah, anytime.
I appreciate it. This is fun.
It's fun for me too, because I'm remembering things now that I've got a whole bunch more stories to tell you. So maybe we can tell.
Well, if you think of any at the moment, I'll if you know one.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you a blunder that I made.
Okay. Yeah. See, here's my thing. I don't want to keep you too long, but at the same time, I also don't want to let you go because if you have stories. Share them because I'm all go right ahead.
Okay. So in the Sasquatch episode, there was a little tracking unit that MacGyver was using, and he would hammer them in the ground.
Yep.
And then they found the pipeline, and they wanted to know where the pipeline was going. So what he did was he took one of those little tracker units, which was meant to just, I think, stick in the ground. I can't remember the whole backstory.
You're right. It had a little peg. It was like a two-sided.
Like a peg, exactly. That was and a little flashing light on it. And then he put it in the pipeline because he wanted to trap. Anyway, so we built a little box with a flashing light and a thing, and there was a little engraved plate on it that said Phoenix 1 and a serial number. So we had, I don't know, a dozen of these things made, because he's got to hammer them. And
and then at one point he sends 3 of them all at once so that
exactly. Yeah. Although that pipe was only about 100 feet long, it ended it. But anyway, so we're doing the scene, and I give the thing to Rick, and he's got the hammer. And he goes, "Pat, give me a sec. You see anything wrong with this?" "Oh, Phoenix was spelt wrong."
Oh,
are you kidding me? So
it is a hard word to spell.
And there's a couple ways to spell it.
Yep.
So I don't know whether I spelled it wrong or the people that did the engraving spelled it wrong or how, but anyway, I'm the one that's standing there in the middle of the woods and the light's going down and Rick's there in the mud and, So what they did in the end is he hammered it in such a way you couldn't see it.
Right.
Knowing we were going to do an insert later. And then for the insert, I fixed it.
Wow.
On the day, you just feel like such an idiot.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, even now, I have to double check when I'm spelling Phoenix because it's Phoenix.
Exactly.
It's like it isn't phonetic. It doesn't quite work.
It doesn't come off easily. No.
Ooh. But that was caught, luckily.
Yes, before it went out.
You don't have anywhere you accidentally it went out and it was still a mistake? Good, because
Not as far as I know. I mean, I haven't watched the episode since it was aired. So.
I've watched them a trillion times. I don't.
Okay, and you didn't know.
No. Can you
As
imagine?
far as I'm concerned, I passed the test.
Can you imagine you come on? I'm like, all right, bud. We have to
That'd be the first thing. Right?
before we even get started. Episode
Anyway,
such and
I
such.
just got to tell
What were you thinking?
you. I wasn't thinking. That was the problem.
No, because honest to God, it's those type. I always say the thing that really sets the show apart, besides Rick, is everybody was on the same page.
Yes.
Everybody was working towards the same goal. It wasn't about ego. Everybody cared about their responsibility. And your job in particular is a great example of that.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you a little story about a detail that almost got me in trouble.
Oh boy.
We were doing an episode, maybe it was Thin Ice. It's where MacGyver goes back to his hometown.
Mm-hmm. That's one of them.
And that was it. Okay. And there were police involved, as I recall, somehow. I don't remember. But anyway, we had to do.
Or it was Blood Brothers. Blood Brothers was he went back to Minnesota.
Yeah. You had to go back to Minnesota. So we had Minnesota police. Mm-hmm. So I do my research and I figure exact kind of badge and hat badge for the police. So I get my research and I've got a copy of it and I go out and I look for the badge and I find really good closely matched to the badge. But the weird thing about the badges in that particular police force is the chest badge is usually quite large and the hat badge is quite small. But in that police force, it's reversed. So anyway, I did it the right way. Put the larger one on the small one there, exactly the way it is in the research. We shot the scene and Tommy, the costume designer, can't remember his last name. I think he's passed away now, so I can tell this story. He didn't come to me, but he saw this. Because he is, as far as he's concerned, as most of us are concerned, the small one goes on the top and the big one goes on the bottom, and they were reversed. He didn't bother to ask me or anything else. He went straight to Steve Downing and said, "Props department screwed up. Look at this." Well, Steve had already watched the scene and didn't notice it, and he's an ex-cop.
Right.
So I get a call, "Mr. Downing wants to see you." Oh, God. So I go down to his office. He goes, "Pat, I want you to look at this." So he plays the scene. I say, "Yeah." He says, "Do you see anything wrong?" I said, "No." The badges. Look at the badges. I go, "Yeah." He says, "You got the chest one on the hat and the hat one on the chest." I go, "Well, no." And I run back to my office and I get the picture and I show it to him and I say, "Look, that's the way it actually is in Minnesota." And he looks at it and he goes, "Oh, yeah, he's right." He says, "You know, you don't always have to be a slave to the truth." Because as far as he was concerned, it just looked odd.
Sure.
And it does look odd, but it's correct.
But it's correct.
But
See,
so,
I love that.
yeah.
That's the type of stuff that, you know.
Who would we think about it?
No, but you know what? I'll tell you, the people who don't know would love to pounce on that and say,
Yes,
"Ha!"
yes,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
And I always had faith, just because I knew whoever was involved with the show didn't cut corners. So I remember, to give you the same type of story, I am in college now, and they start to show the episodes on the USA channel. And so I'm in college from like 93 to 96. And between classes, you have all the time in the world. If you're not doing your homework or research, you could sit in the lounge and watch TV. My thing was, everybody better get away from this TV when MacGyver comes on. I don't care if you're right in the middle of The Godfather. I'm turning on my, you know. Yeah. So I'm watching it and I'm in my bliss. And even though I know them by heart, it doesn't matter. This is making my day. And you get all these kids who come around who either didn't know enough or didn't see it to begin with, or just want to be that college age smart mouth, I know everything type of guy. And they'll come by and start watching it and go, like you said, how come look at the hat, he has a smaller badge type of thing. And so my job, up until, you know, it doesn't happen now, but at the time it was defending the continuity and why did he do this and why did that happen? And I would say things like, you think they didn't do the research? And then I get into my whole spiel of, let me tell you about MacGyver and the people involved. Right. So they ended up losing because they just go, all right, you win. You got it. Okay, you know. But I'll tell you, next thing you know, I have a whole bunch of college students sitting around me watching MacGyver.
Great.
They're like, you're right. This is great. I'm like, you're darn right it is.
There you go. Yeah. I actually know two people I've met who went to college to take sciences because of MacGyver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that always makes me feel good when I hear that.
It really does. And I'll tell you, I try to push it with my kids about, their job right now in life is do well in school and be a good person.
Right.
That's it. That's their job. Be a good person and do well in school, which is that's not a hard task, but everything else is built on those two principles.
It's true. It's true. Everything else.
Well, you watch MacGyver.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. That's on both levels. They're seeing it and going, oh yeah, okay. So it matters. It makes a difference.
I think the concept of a hero who always gets the bad guy and never uses a gun was so clever.
Mm-hmm.
Just that whole concept right there. And I don't know, I wasn't really into politics, particularly American politics at the time, but maybe whether the NRA ever got after them or if that was ever an issue. If people,
all the time.
Really, yeah.
Well, yeah, Rick would often say, me and the NRA don't get along too well. Yeah. And he said it with pride, like, darn right.
And then what did he do? He went and he worked on a show where he used a machine gun every episode.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
He's an actor.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny too, because boy, as the guy who I am watching your hero now go to be that type of character, I'm like, ooh, this is going to take some adjusting to get used to. Yeah. And now I do a audio series where it's called MacGyver SG-1, the audio series.
Oh, okay.
And it's continuing the story of MacGyver finding out that his brother is Jack O'Neill from Stargate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that way we get new adventures of both shows, but we also get to see where they get along and also where they're going to have certain conversations.
Right. Of course.
Go ahead.
You know what? If there were two brothers like that, that's probably how it would work out. One would be the pacifist, the other guy would join the army.
And they love each other, but they also are going to have a strong debate once in a while of why you don't need the gun right now. Yeah, well, I don't like getting shot either. Like that type of thing.
As you like to say in the States, what's it like at Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And in this series, I get to actually, you got to be careful though, too, because you can't have it be cliche. No. You can't, you know what I mean? Everything can be a caricature if you do things too much.
Or it gets too earnest or preachy or
Exactly. There's a lot of shows I can go down a list that are on now where you feel like they're on a soapbox preaching to you, where MacGyver still got the message across. And at no point did you feel like you were being preached to.
No, that's true. Now, speaking of SG-1, you know that I worked on Atlantis as well?
No. Get going on that one.
Atlantis.
Sheesh.
Atlantis, yeah. It was so funny because I was the assistant. I'd gone away. I had another career, not being a prop master for about 5 or 6 years. Came back, didn't want to be a prop master. I was an assistant for a couple of years first. Mm-hmm. And one of the first shows I was an assistant on was Stargate Atlantis. And then partway through that season, I became the prop master and then did it for the next, I think, 3 years. But the very first episode, the very first day on set is the scene where they're pushing all the gear through the Stargate to go to Atlantis.
The Rising is
so there's a crossover with an RDA's in it. Yeah. So it's the first day on set. I hadn't seen him since MacGyver. I walk up and I go, Rick. And he looks down and he goes, Pat Probs. And he throws his arms around me. And it's like, oh my God, it's like we never left. It was
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it was great.
Oh man.
And then he was in a couple of other episodes, I think, of Atlantis.
Yeah, they do, especially in the first season, they would do one where Elizabeth Weir was having visions where she saw him. So it was him in his blue uniform. But then later on, I don't know how long you were on the show, but there's a great 2-parter with him and Woolsey where they're hiding from.
Oh yes, I did that episode.
That is my favorite. Well, obviously because Rick's involved. If Rick's involved, it's my favorite.
Woolsey is such a dweeb that it just looks so perfect. And weren't they in a situation where the water was rising? And
Rick has to, in order to let the team come in to help them, which is Shepard and all of them, Rick has to actually dive into a submerged area, pull the lever, pull the switch, whatever, in one breath. Yeah. And, I'd heard stories where, him being the ad-libber that he is, would do things like, they're like, are you going to be long? And he starts to put his foot in and it's freezing. So his foot comes back, he goes, not long, no. And
what, though?
yeah.
That's how he was in real life. He would do those little asides and little things all the time.
And it's that straight face type of
Yeah.
self-deprecating humor
Exactly.
that I've always identified with. That, you know, it's amazing how many people wouldn't pick up on it because it's so quick, right?
Oh,
You say
absolutely.
something
Yeah.
sarcastic,
It's a throwaway.
but if you don't make it, if you keep a straight face, sometimes it goes over people's heads, and that's hilarious too.
I know. Well, the thing with RDA is he had that horrible combination of being smart and being a smart aleck.
Yeah.
So, you know, he would just do crazy. He was like a big kid, really.
Yeah, he always say, or Amanda Tapping say he's like a 16-year-old.
Exactly. It's exactly true. And you know
Right.
who else was like that is Jason Momoa.
Oh,
Was a even bigger kid.
I know Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa and I, right before my son was born, my wife is like 8 months pregnant. We go to what we think is going to be our last convention at Shore Leave, I think it was. It was like a Stargate convention. Well, he was there. Well, we had met him a couple years before. We were performing. We have a music group, and he remembered it. He goes, "Oh, next time we'll have to jam." Well, I knew he was coming this time, so I brought my guitar. Well, when he sees me, I said, "Did you bring it?" He goes, "No, dude, I'm sorry, I didn't." A little while later, he comes trampsing down the hall while I'm talking to somebody else. Dude, he has a slide on. He's learning the blues.
Oh.
Dude, go get your guitar. We spent 2 hours in the lobby jamming on my guitar, and then he goes,
I'll bet that raised a crowd.
Oh, they had to rope it off. Like, it's me, my pregnant wife, and his wife, Lisa Bonet, was pregnant with their son too at the time. And he, we play for 2 hours, and isn't this great? And now we're not actor and guy who likes the show. We're two musicians swapping a guitar.
Yeah.
Well, he goes, what do you say we go buy a guitar? So I'm like, he goes, I need my own guitar. Well, long story short, his people wouldn't let me go with them.
Oh.
Whatever. They were just being bullied.
Yeah, the people are dicks.
Right. Exactly. They're like, no, liability. You can't go with them. I said, all right, well, will you tell me what music store? Nope. So I thought, all right, I'm thankful for the 2 hours we had. You know, well, he comes back. What's his name? The doctor, wow, gonna drive me nuts.
Dr. Beckett?
Dr. Beckett is up on stage doing his time on stage.
I can't remember his name. Sean?
It's gonna bug me.
Anyway.
That's another story. But anyway, he I'm watching him on stage, and all I hear is down the hall. He comes back with the guitar, and he's looking for me. He tells me, come on, I got the guitar. So now I have to get up and go get the guitar and come back. And we played for another 2 hours. And then he auctioned it off for like $2,500, you know, on stage. Cause we're having fun learning. Like, I'm showing him how to play stuff. He's showing me how to play the blues with the slide, gives me a pick. And then they go, Jason, you're on, you have to go on. They're announcing you right now. He goes, oh, he hands me the guitar, goes, take care of this, runs up. I'm walking into the room holding that guitar just so I could sit and like not cause a scene. He goes, my buddy Mac here and I, we've been playing guitar for 200 heads whip around and look at me. And I'm like, how's it going? Just, he's the guy. I'm just holding the,
oh no.
But great guy. Like you said, he's a big kid.
He's really, he's actually bigger now. He's put on a lot of muscle for,
right?
I think, and yeah, for sure.
Well, it's great when I hear people go, oh, how about Aquaman? I said, yeah, I know him. You know Aquaman?
No, all the girls. Like,
yeah, exactly.
He's just a big kid. It's not that big a deal. Now, I've only been to one convention. They had one in Vancouver. It was a Stargate convention after I'd left the show. Oh, no, I guess it was maybe this show was still going on or just finished. Anyway, I go in incognito because I don't want anybody to know I worked on the show.
Sure.
So I'm wandering around, I'm looking and thinking, wow, this is kind of interesting. These people are so into this show. So I'm there about half an hour or so, and I get this tap on the shoulder. I turn around and go, somebody I've never met. I don't know. I say, excuse me, but you're the prop master on Stargate Atlantis, weren't you?
Jeez.
How the hell would you know? Yeah. Like, how would they know?
Honestly.
But somebody figured it out or talks. I don't know. But so yeah, they know everything. You can't hide from them.
Well,
the fans.
And you know, case in point, there are the people who can talk to you like a human being.
Mhm.
And then there's those that are socially awkward, but still want to interact with you.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, I give such credit to people like RDA and those who have to smile and be as kind as they always are to everybody.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you could feel your gut churning because the person, like, for example, a lot of these conventions I've been to, someone will try and have rapport with you by going like, if I insult you, we're now joking.
Oh, right.
Like,
yeah.
no.
Too soon.
You don't start off with, hey,
Yeah.
you play a real a-hole. Like,
No,
don't do that.
No.
Right. But I'll tell you, it's a big credit to the people who can smile.
I don't know how they do it.
I know.
Well, at this convention where they recognize me, when that word got around, everybody's asking me for my autograph and they want to take a picture with me.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not used to this, right?
I
I'm the
know.
guy behind the scenes.
Well, what about
so I can't imagine what it would be like just your day-to-day life. You go to the grocery store and it would just be. I have a lot of respect for the people who are kind. Some aren't.
Paul McGillian?
Paul McGillian, yes.
My wife's just handed me this because we met him
fun.
and had such a good time with him, and it was like after the, because after the convention itself, you go hang out at the bar or whatever
Right.
it is in the lobby. We hit it off so well with him. He was so impressed with us. You guys are a great couple, and he gives me a hug. And we had stepped to the bar to get her a drink, and he was there. Well, he's swarmed with people.
Oh yeah.
Well, he took a liking to us, and we hit it off. Well, I said, well, we'll see you tomorrow because we didn't want to take up too much of somebody's time. And he goes, all right. He gives me a hug. Well, he goes, mwah, to my cheek, which I get, and I'm a mature human being and appreciate the affection.
Yeah.
However, as it's happening, and I think, oh, that's so sweet that he feels so close to do that. Because a guy kissing a guy can be awkward.
It can be.
But he was sincere, and I get it, and it's very sweet and cherished memory. However, I knew as I turned around to the rest of the group, I thought, please, for the love of God, nobody else saw that. Please, for the love of God, nobody else saw that. Are you
kidding me?
Because I sat down, everybody's silent for a second, and then somebody goes, so how's your boyfriend? I said, all right.
Here we go.
So
nobody see me. There was probably 200 people watching you.
Exactly. Of course, the other half is going, you lucky son of a bee. He liked it.
Right, exactly. How did you do that? How did you do that?
Well,
and did you notice that David McKay, who played the science officer, his name escapes me now.
Well, yeah, McKay is the character's name.
Oh, that's right. David, I don't think of his last name.
Hewlett.
He was a sweet man. I loved him.
David Hewlett.
David Hewlett. You'll notice they made the smartest guy on the mission a Canadian. Because all the writers are Canadian.
Yeah. Well, did you hear? You probably did. I don't know. Joe did.
Joe Flanagan.
Joe Flanagan does. I'm trying to snag him for the show. Well, he does a what do you call it? What is the app called? Instagram. He'll do like Instagram videos. Oh. He told the story of he's on a plane with Rick. And it's right at the beginning where they're, I guess they're going to go fly to do the Rising pilot, the first episode of Atlantis. So they're in a plane flying somewhere, and they're sitting there, and he says, so Rick, what kind of advice should I get? Give me some advice. Rick goes, I don't know what to tell you. I don't, what kind of advice can I give you? I don't know. Just do the job. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, and he's quiet for a minute. He goes, oh, you know what? Don't do and I know I'm not using the right words, but he goes, don't get stuck doing the flibba-flabba. And he goes, the what? Being the guy who has to do all the explaining of, the plot points. Right. Yeah. Don't be that guy. Because on MacGyver, one of the great things of MacGyver was he was always humble. Mm-hmm. He never walked up and said, I'm here. I will save the day. He was always the reluctant hero. Right. Well, he would, I guess, say to the writers, or the producers would say to the writers, don't stick him with the exposition. Right. Let somebody else do it, because that's a lot.
That was McKay's job.
Well, it became McKay's job because Joe went, oh, all right, so don't get stuck doing that? Okay. And then went into the writers and said, I guess they started filming a scene. He goes, you know what? I'd have a hard time saying all that. You know who'd be great? David Hewlett here. And he stepped back, and David's like, what the heck? All right. So from then on, you're right. He became the smartest, the guy who had to explain everything.
Exactly. That's it. And that's almost, yeah, I know that story. It's like, he didn't want to be the guy.
Isn't that
Because some of
funny?
the lines he had to spew out, oh my goodness.
Well, what about Amanda Tapping? Amanda,
yeah.
I always say Amanda Tapping and Dana Elcar are some of the most amazing actors just for their fact that either they had to say certain things like, MacGyver, what are you doing with that thing? Or in Amanda Tapping's case, you have to make gobbledygook sound
like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And the both of them did it brilliantly.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Amanda is directing now. I don't know if you know that.
Oh,
she directed a couple of episodes of Magicians shows on.
Okay. Okay. And she just did something else too. I think another sci-fi show where I guess they were calling her Queen of Sci-Fi, and they put it they put it on her director's chair.
Yes, right.
But good people. I'm telling you.
Oh yeah.
Good people on both shows.
Yeah.
Because I guess
Rachel was so sweet. She was a joy.
Who?
Rachel.
Yeah.
So sweet. She really was.
Did you see her on the commercial now?
No.
Her and her daughter are on a pizza commercial.
Okay.
For Domino's. And it's wouldn't that be great? Oh no, it's just a quick clip. She's in a car and they're talking about how you can just run in and get your pizza. Well, they have a race car driver climbing out of his car.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
And the little girl says, "Hey, whatever your name is, I like your PJs." Well, that's her and her daughter.
Oh, really?
You could tell the daughter's got the bright blue eyes and looks like a miniature version of her. And I'm like, wait a minute, they only showed a quick clip, but that's Taylor. That's her, yeah. She's another great one. She was so sweet when we met her. She my wife was like, what do you do to keep your muscle tone? Like, what is your exercise routine? And she goes, oh, I don't know. I guess I'm just lucky. I'm just born that way. And we're like, bull crap.
Not how that works.
Right? Because she was tight with her muscles.
Oh, yeah. She was well-toned for sure. Yeah.
How long were you on that show?
I was 4 years on that show. I did. And then I went to work on a show called Psych, which was...
We love Psych.
Yeah, I did all but one season of Psych.
Really?
That was so much fun. That was a lot of fun.
Wow. General Hammond was on the pilot of that, actually. Don S. Davis.
Well, I didn't do the first season.
Okay. Well, he was on that one. Crossover. Here we go.
Here.
He was a sweet.
I'll tell you, you're talking about Tori Higginson.
Yeah.
I shall tell you two stories. One from Atlantis and one from MacGyver. They're gun stories. So on MacGyver, there was an episode it took place mostly in Chinatown. Tia Carrero was the star.
Oh, yep.
She had to fire a machine gun.
The Wish Child was one. Probably the Wish Child, I think.
Maybe. I can't
or there was a second one.
Anyway,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
She has to fire a machine gun. So I had to teach her how to fire the machine gun. And she says, I've never fired one before, but, I'm kind of, looks like it might be fun. And so anyway, I give her the gun. She fires one shot. Oh, that was cool. And, you build them up, right? Now you do 3 in a row. By the end of it, she was Rambo. Like when you teach women particularly how to use a gun, often they're nervous. And by the end of it, they're way better than the guys because they're just into it.
Oh, yeah. And I know the scene you're talking about, too, because she just...
And it's inside a cave. And it's all... Anyway, so on Stargate, there was a scene where I think she exchanges personalities with somebody and she suddenly becomes this kind of Rambo character.
Yep.
And so she had to learn how to not just fire a machine gun, but she had to learn proper military procedures, like, how you duck, how you hold, how you clear a corner, all this stuff. She had to look like a professional military person. So we have an armorer in Vancouver. His name is Rob Fournier. Sweet man, knows, he does a lot of the big gun shows. He's a gun expert. And he teaches people how to use guns. So she said to me, she says, this episode coming up where I have to fire the gun? I said, yeah. She says, I've only fired a gun once in my life. I fired one shot and I burst into tears. And she's got this episode coming up where she has to be fired like hundreds of rounds at it.
Oh, yeah. Because it's her and Joe actually were possessed by two
That's right.
rivals.
That's right. Yeah. So I brought in Rob and he started her off slowly, right? This is a girl who cried when she fired a gun. When you watch that episode, she is so badass. Like she just got into it by the end of it. Like once you get comfortable,
Yeah.
She was just she completely rocked the episode.
I remember
She
that
was-
episode too, because you're right. It did feel, because it was so unlike Weir, the
Yeah.
fact that she took to it so well
Yeah.
comes across on screen. You go, oh no, this doesn't feel like an actress trying to make you believe it. You go, no, that's who. Wow, she's really possessed.
Actually doing that. It's something that I really look for when I watch movies. I don't
Yeah.
watch for it, but I notice it. You can tell if a guy doesn't or a girl doesn't know how to really operate a gun or handle a gun. Like, you can tell. You just know it's. Geez.
Well, The Murderer's Sky was the other one. I think that's the one you were referring to on MacGyver, which it was the end of season 3 with the little boy who knew he
That's
was like a right, and he went on to do his own show,
Oh.
The Electric Night, I think it was called after that.
Right.
But yeah, that's a great episode.
Yeah.
But Tia Carrere was on both of those Chinatown episodes, playing 2 different characters. Yeah.
Well, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should interview you.
What do you want to know? Well, it's funny too, because there's a lot of times where I'm always seeking the knowledge, but I have another podcast called Never Gets Old podcast, and that's more general, more talk about music and anything really, pop culture. Well, I had someone on who was saying, no, it was this date that we did this concert. And just offhandedly, I went, actually, I think that was 74. And he goes, and I go, I don't want to art. And I don't ever want to come off as a know-it-all.
Right.
I may know stuff, but I don't ever want to argue or look pompous. Well, this guy, and at the same time, I think I should have kept my mouth shut. Well, as we're talking, he goes down into his basement, looks through whatever, comes back up and goes, all right, can I stop you for a second? I said, oh, yeah, sure, go ahead. He goes, you were right.
Well, at least he admitted it.
I know. But it was one of those where I thought, ooh, I don't want to argue with people and I don't want to insult my guests. But he was very humble and said, all right, even though I was there on stage, it clearly meant more to you. And I'm like, I wasn't even born then. I just know,
wow.
I just remember the show. Like, because it was 74. Well, I was born in December of 74.
Okay.
But, it's.
But for something like that, when you're talking to somebody who was there, you better have your story straight.
Well, and I was, as a kid, I was tested. And at the time, it never clicked for me until years later. But I was going to a new school and they took me to a place to test me. And at the time, I'm just thinking, after this, we get to go to McDonald's. Well, it turned out I had selective photographic memory, which you know what photographic memory is.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good thing. Well, selective photographic memory is not. If it's something that I enjoy, say, oh, I don't know, MacGyver, Stargate, I'm going to remember all the details and all that just without trying because it clicks. Like you remember whatever.
Some triggers.
However, the downside is, say in school, if you don't like a subject, you're going to work really, really, really hard just to remember how to say the subject, because your mind goes, you don't care about this, so there's no room for that. Tell me about this prop that was on, season 3, episode 4, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But at the time, and they said I had perfect pitch, which as a music guy now matters. Where at the time I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. I was, going to go into 3rd grade. I'm like, whatever you say.
Oh man, I wish I had that.
Right. In a way, like I said, the good things, fantastic. And the bad things, not so hot.
Yeah, no, I have a terrible memory. And for a job that requires like a lot of detail and a lot of thought, I've got notebooks could show you that, are just, I write everything down. Mm-hmm. Somebody comes up to me in the hall, hey Pat, I thought, and I immediately go and I write it down, because if I don't, I'm not going to get done.
I'm the same way, because you get distracted and you think, yeah, I'll remember that, and then you did.
And you get asked 10 things on your way back to your office. So
exactly. I know you feel like Columbo with the book, like writing stuff down.
Hey, you know what? You asked me one of my favorite episodes. Another one, I don't remember what it's called, but it was the one where MacGyvered the big backpack with the fan.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's season 6.
Yeah, that rig actually exists. Like the guy actually built it, which is why they wrote it in the script. It was just new at the time. But of course, he had to fabricate it out of, you know, the stuff that he
The
had.
tent and
What
everything.
was there, yeah. But I remember because the guy who he had to save, I don't remember the actor's name, so I'm a little hesitant to say it, but he was one of those actors. He was not the most loved actor on set all the time.
Sure.
And there were a couple scenes where we're out in the mud and, you know.
Oh yeah.
things were
Wasteland
horrible.
was the name of the episode. So
Right.
it's all a wasteland. It's yucky.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what a place called Burns Bog in Vancouver. And it's this huge bog. But for the scenes with MacGyver, where the guy's on his back and they're about to take off,
Yeah.
and they're running along and starting to think and all that, and they're in the bog, that was all a set. They built that because it happened at night, and it was an effect, right? They had a rig that, you know, cables to pull them along, pull them up, and everything.
Yep.
And so for about an hour or so, this guy was strapped to Rick's back. They had him all cabled in, and it was such a hassle to get him strapped and unstrapped. He just stayed there, and Rick was being held up by cables. So basically, oh no, sorry, he was in front.
Right.
He was strapped to MacGyver in front. So Rick would
Because
be-
MacGyver just comes, scoops them up, and they get out of there.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. He's holding them. So they were all wired together. And Rick would do this thing. This is terrible. I'm getting in trouble for this, but he would be, you know, they bring him craft service, so he'd be eating something and he'd wipe it on the guy's jacket. It's a wardrobe jacket. And this poor guy's standing there strapped to the front of him for I don't know how long it was in the set while they're lighting, and it's like, and Rick's just kind of, you know, hanging.
Yeah, just kind of hang around.
Exactly. But that was fun to do because trying to figure out how to build something that already exists to look like it was MacGyvered
Yep.
was, you know, that was kind of interesting.
And
And we actually had to get, for the flying scenes outside, yeah, we had to get permission from the, your Canadian version, the FAA,
Sure.
to do it. They had special permission and a flight pass, and it was a whole big
Wow.
deal. It didn't occur to me at the time.
Well,
But-
that's another example of them taking the time to show the MacGyverism.
Right.
Because, you know, in this new version, they do split screen and it's a 3-second.
Right.
Now it's done and you're supposed to just accept it. Where in this case, in particular, that episode, you knew this wasn't a 5-minute project.
Right.
He had to measure it. They show him measuring it. They show him cutting it. They show him
Right.
weaving the rope. Meanwhile, the guy's bleeding in a bog, you know,
Yeah, right,
5 miles away with his children coming for him.
Yeah.
And I remember you feel, and that's the payoff for taking your time showing him make something, because that added pressure of time is running
The
out.
time is like, come on, let's
Right?
go. You know what I think the difference is between the two episodes, between the new one and the old one, then is the problem with society, which is short attention spans. People
Without a
just want
doubt.
everything quick, edit, quick, go, you know, send a text message, get a, you know, you get a picture, you send it, you got it. You know, on MacGyver, we used to have to get pictures of everything. We take the picture, we take the film, we take it to the 1-hour photo place, they'd print them, we'd go back, we'd get them, and then we were ready. Now, I just take a picture, I email it to the director, and while I'm in the store, he tells me yes or no.
That's
So
great.
that whole short attention span thing, I think, yeah, you couldn't make MacGyver today the way they made it back then. I think people wouldn't watch it. I think it would be, you'd have to change it a bit because it was that kind of show where they explain things and it was, you know. And
Well,
like you
I
said,
think if it's done right and everything's working the way it did, it would be only because the attention to detail and making it exciting was the key. Where you're right. Now it's just, let's skip all that thought and just get to the end result of the producer actually of the new one. I had been in contact with before the show actually aired, because he saw me going, uh-oh, guys,
yeah, right.
don't do this. If
you're-
you're not connected it to the original, don't do it.
Right, yeah.
Well, we got back and forth in a nice conversation. And he was saying, you know, he mentioned exactly what you said. It's for a new generation. I'm like, that's such a cop-out. You're assuming the new
is.
generation is a generation of cows that can't pay attention to things.
That's right.
Where if you just treat them with respect, the payoff is, well, iconic, as you
true.
know.
I think if it was done in the way that, say, a Sopranos or those kinds of shows, because in Sopranos, you know, it's not fast paced. It's not, you know, they spend a lot of time sitting around talking,
Slow
but
burn.
it's so good
Mhm.
that you're willing to watch it. So I think if they did it like that, then yes, it
Right?
probably would be okay.
But again, you could feel with the actual MacGyver where everybody cared scene by scene by scene, whereas with the new thing and a whole lot of other shows, you could feel them cut corners. You could say, well, we could explain this, but let's just double talk it and then have an explosion.
Right.
Like, because being who I am, I feel like I have to watch the new one, even though I hate it. I have to know what I'm talking about.
Hate watching.
If you're going to criticize it, you better know what you're talking about.
Yes, no, I agree. You're right.
So, you know what I mean? So I take the bullet for everybody else.
There's a term in filmmaking called shoe leather.
Okay.
It's where, you know, you got a scene, two guys are at the car, they're talking, and then they got to go into the store. So they turn, you cut, and you're at the store.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't want is you don't want them turning, walking across the street. And that, I mean, in that specific case, that's literally shoe leather because they're walking. But there's all these things that happen between the action that you try to tighten up because nobody's going to want to watch somebody walking across the street.
Agreed.
So, but they've taken that to a whole new level these days with the split screens and the jump cuts and the
we're you know,
rid of all of it.
You try to follow it, and you're like, so we're just supposed to not think. We're just supposed to assume this guy is
who he is.
And personality wise, they don't write him humble at all either.
Really? Oh,
not at there is nothing. When I say there's nothing MacGyver about it, I don't just mean how they do the MacGyverisms. I mean, and you saw the pilot. Hi, I'm Angus MacGyver. I was a MIT graduate. MacGyver never talked about.
And you know the other thing I thought, and this is typical of North American TV, and I love British TV because I don't do this, but they go from Bruce McGill to a super handsome buff guy.
Right.
Like,
well, I always said it's pandering.
Do that.
It's pandering because the character is nothing like Jack Dalton.
Yeah, I know. I got that from the pilot.
They slap the names on so that they think us original guys are going to go, good enough. That'll do. And we're just going, So at this point, it's their 5th season. They've cut away from any sort of resemblance to or pandering. They just go, look it, we're just using the name. There is nothing else about it that's MacGyver. We know that, you know that. And we're just going to carry on.
It's too bad.
It kills you. But here's my thought. And I wonder what you think. When it's said and done, and they finally end this new version, I don't think anybody will remember it. I think people will still go back to the actual MacGyver.
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree.
Right? Because look at us. Like, granted, you worked on it, but I didn't. And it still is part of my DNA.
Yeah.
And that's because of how good, and again, it never feels nostalgic. It never feels dated.
We call it the show that launched 1,000 careers.
Yeah, isn't that true?
So many people, and a lot of, like, you know, actors. Mayim Bialik was on an episode. You'll probably remember
3 of them. She was on 3.
Yeah. So you know, it was a great chance, and they cast quite a few Canadian actors too who went on to do very well. So it was.
Well, Gary Chalk.
The best story, I think, of somebody making a career out of MacGyver, and I'm sure you've had him on, is Dan Shea.
Not yet. Dan Shea. I've met Dan Shea, and we're trying to set up a time. He is a nut.
He's a complete nut.
Yeah.
I love him. I've known him. Well, we met on MacGyver, and we've worked on so many shows together. He was a stunt coordinator on many shows I've worked on. But he went, you know what his nickname was on MacGyver?
Remind me, because I know Rick calls him it, and he calls
Tailcoat.
What is it?
Tailcoat.
Tailcoat.
You don't know that? Oh, you got to tell him that. Oh my God. Because he was the stand-in, and the stand-in is like just the person that stands there because you look like the star, and they like you, and you move for the camera, they rehearse, and he was really good at it. But he wanted to be an action hero. That's really what he wanted. He was also a stand-up comic for a while. So he talked to me about this when we were on MacGyver. He says, Pat, my goal is to become the big hero. I spend my winters in Hawaii getting a tan, and then I do the show in the spring and summer. And, you know, and he had this whole thing worked on how his life was going to go and what it was going to be. And the way he did it was riding on Rick's coattails, because what we did, and I should have brought it out. I've got a picture of us playing hockey, a little MacGyver hockey team.
Yeah.
Dan Shea played junior B, which is very high level hockey. He was really good. He was as good as Rick was. Mm-hmm. So the two of them, when they got on the ice, I mean, they would pass to each other, and they were like this. They were like the main line. And Rick loved him, and Dan would always pass the puck to him. So, you know, Rick would score the goal. Rick loved him. Rick did a charity hockey thing in Edmonton, and Dan went to that. He just was riding Rick's coattails in a way. So he got the name Coattails. And then he got the stuntman job, or the stunt coordinator job on SG1 because of Rick and Mike Greenberg.
And became Siler, like they actually gave him a role.
And Siler, of course, every time you saw him, he was getting something happened to him, right? Yeah. There was a big wrench and something would hit him. That was big. So that's how we got started. MacGyver. It was just, being there for Rick and just making a career out of it.
Well, I'll tell you, I saw
If you
him.
do, tell him and ask him also
Mhm.
about the golf, little golf competition. We were shooting an episode on Vancouver Island at Royal Roads College, which was used for X-Men. The big castle in X-Men?
Yeah.
That's Royal Roads College in Victoria. And we used it for an episode. Don't ask me the name of the episode. I won't remember. We were in Victoria, so it was probably the one where he's on the boat. He's on the big ship, the freighter, the one where he gets knocked unconscious.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And he ends up in a big mansion somewhere. Was that the same episode?
No.
Doesn't matter.
The
Anyway.
the one I think you're thinking of is the Holy Rose episode.
Yes.
Where it's supposed to be England.
Yes. So anyway, we're at this huge castle, and they've got this playing field in the back, and me and Bill, the director of photography, and Ronnie, the camera operator, and Pete, who's the first AD. A bunch of us are real avid golfers. We're always talking about golf. So we're at this thing, and I got my golf clubs in my car, of course, because we played when we were over in Victoria. And at lunchtime, I took out my sand wedge and a couple balls, and I'm in the field, and I'm just hitting some shots. And Dan comes up and he goes, "Hey, let's have a contest. Whoever can get closest to the goal post." Well, this field is just a minefield. It's like bumps, and it's not a proper field at all. So we have this contest. He wins. I'm the guy with the 6 handicap. He's the guy who plays twice a year. He will remind you of that. I'm not going to tell you to ask him about it, but tell him you were talking to me. And he will tell you the story about how he beat me at a game of golf. He tells everybody, if we go somewhere and it's the two of us together, "Hey, this is Pat. We had this chipping contest. It's not a big deal." I don't often tell the story, but he every single time tells. And the funny part about it is that I went to golf camp, like a golf school in the summer when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
Dan came from the School of Hard Knocks. He used a catalog from Sears as the shin pads when he played hockey. He came from the rough side of town.
Wow.
And I'm the rich kid. So he always calls me the rich kid. And even though I'm the rich kid who went to golf camp, he still beat me at this golf thing, which he talks about to this day. So when you interview him, make a note, say, "Hey, Pat O'Brien, the prop master, do you remember anything about him?" And that's what he'll tell you.
That's what he'll tell you. And then I'll go, and then when he's done, I'll go, boom, he called it. Go back and watch this episode. And he called it. So he has the last laugh on you, Dan.
But the reason he got it was because the ball bounced 6 different ways before it actually got close.
When we saw him at a con, he's up on stage and he goes, "Look, I have ADHD, so I'm going to be jumping around a lot." And he'd be telling one story, which would then go off to another story. Yeah. And it was great because somebody said, "How did you get to the part of Siler?" Well, he starts, "I was on MacGyver, and then I did this movie with Rick that was called," and he'd look at me and go,
"Handyman,
the one with that," and I'd go, "Oh, Eyes of a Stranger." He's like, "Yeah," and then we did this other one, Eyes of a Killer. He's like, "Yeah." So it got to the point where he'd just go, "And the one with," and then he'd point to me. Everybody was laughing. I'm like, he's like, "No, that's good. It's better that you remember than I don't have to think about it."
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, every time I remind him, I go, "Okay, how about now?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to be doing a polar bear dive. Maybe next week." He's constantly, every time I see him, he does his right with the fist. Exactly. Oh, he's a nut. But yeah, one of these days I'll nail him down.
You should.
I'm supposed to get Rick on too.
Has he not been on?
No. Rick is
he's a bit camera shy these days.
Well, here's the thing. One, I always say on a greedy side, yeah, I want him on. I want to talk. And I just want to have this like I'm having with you, just shooting the ball, having a good conversation. But I think, and I saw him in October at a con, and Paul Brown, who does these with him, he's like his handler guy. He said, "Don't worry, I'll remind him, but don't hold your breath because it's going to take a while." I think it's part of it, and you could tell me, but I know from experience watching him do interviews for the last 30 years, I would assume he would be nervous to, I think he thinks he's going to be asked the same 20 questions that he's been asked for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I already know all that because I had to suffer through it with him.
Right. Yeah.
We could skip all that, but one of these days I'll get him on. But, I go through, okay, they're going to talk about SeaWorld. They're going to talk about his bike trip to Alaska. They're going to give him a rubber band and a piece of bubble gum and say, "Build something," which is, and talk about learning how to deal with the public. I learned it by watching him because I know deep inside you want to go, oh.
Yeah, I'd rather be anywhere else.
But he smiles and he handles it.
Yeah.
You
'cause
know,
do, yeah.
you roll with it. And I've learned that by watching him, because I know he used to be on Jay Leno. Have you ever watched any of his Jay Leno appearances?
No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
You could watch him on YouTube, and God love him. They are painful from our point of view, because Jay will go, "Who you dating?" And then
Yeah.
the next episode, "You dating anybody? How old are they?"
Yeah.
And he at one point, Rick goes, "What was that? 5 minutes? I waited 5 minutes. I knew you were going to ask it."
Good for him.
Right?
Good for him. Yeah.
But but yet he does it with a smile.
Yeah.
And I just think, Jay, shut up and let the man talk. Like,
Yeah.
he's your guest. He's not there to be the butt of your jokes,
Exactly.
you know. But I think,
Oh, well.
I
I
think
remember the he had for a couple months on set. He had a American Sign Language person teaching him sign language when he was dating Marley Matlin.
yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't that
She-
amazing?
yeah. He was,
I remember they did an episode with that too. There's an
Oh.
episode. Yeah.
I remember that.
I think it might have been before your time. I think it was season 2.
Oh, I did season 2. Maybe it could have been Grant did that episode. Maybe.
Yeah, that's true. But it was one in particular where he had to do that. And I'm like, oh, he must have been dating her at the time.
Yeah.
Because I know the writers would try and throw in personal things from his life, and
Of course,
you know,
of course, yeah.
which is
Well, if
sweet.
you do, ask him about what was his name? Not Johnny. Whatever his first name is. It's not Johnny, but his nickname was Johnny Dogwalker.
Oh yeah.
And this is a guy he was a Teamster, and he was Rick's personal driver in LA, and they brought him up to be his personal driver in Vancouver. And so he drove him back and forth from set and did all that. And kind of what you call a body man, like if Rick needed something, he'd go out and get it for him, that
Sure.
sort of thing.
Like a gopher.
Sorry?
Like a gopher.
Yeah, kind of, but it's sort of a step up from gopher. Billy Dogwalker was his name. Because Rick's dog Whiskey needed to be walked, and Rick was busy, so we'd always see Bill out walking the dog. So his nickname became Billy Dogwalker, and he became a bit of a legend on the show as well. So, but Bill actually lives in Vancouver now. He stayed here.
Really? Well, I don't blame him, because you always have the conversation of if you could visit anywhere.
Yeah, right.
I always say Vancouver because one,
yeah.
it's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I know from
Have you been here?
no, not yet. Well, hey, believe you me, when I am,
You know what? When you come here, call me, and I'll take you to all the locations that we shot at.
I would love that, because I was going to say, besides it being a beautiful town, and I know the food is great. They have great
Awesome.
food cars and everything.
Yep. Yeah.
I know I would be spending most of my time going, oh, that's from episode such and such. And that use that, because
Oh, and Mac, I just have to say one thing. That offer is open to you, not the rest of the people watching the podcast. Because
no. Can you imagine? Oh God, can you imagine how your email box is going to be filled with, I saw that you said that you would give us a
there was a guy in Vancouver here. I don't know if he does it anymore, but he had a business doing X-Files tours. Come to Vancouver, and he had a little bus, and he would take people around to all the locations that X-Files shot at.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny too, because I'll watch, like you said, Psych or Highlander, and I'm like,
Well, I did the first season of Highlander.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I'll pause it and go, see that building that they're standing in front of? Yeah. That was the episode of such and such,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And my family, before, I remember being, this is during the 80s or whatever, I'd spot different things. And I'd say, oh, that's Gary Chalk. He was on MacGyver. And here's this guy.
Yeah.
And my father go, everybody was on MacGyver. We got it. But you know what? If you're good enough and you're liked enough, I remember them saying for like at the Stargate conventions, the powers that be would say, if you were an a-hole, you worked one day.
Yes.
If you're a sweet person, we're going to find spots for you to come back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Well, unfortunately, it's not that way with the really big stars. I've worked with some stars that just go, wouldn't it be easier just to cast somebody else? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't it? But no, that's the person that the studio knows they can make their money back on. So you just put up with their bullshit.
Yeah, see.
It's the part of film and TV that bothers me, is that a lot of people get away with a lot of shit that you and I just wouldn't even attempt, because we're not famous. We don't have the backup and all that. I mean, they're few and far between, those people, but they're out there. Trust me.
Well, what's his name? One in particular that I was told about from Skara, the actor who was Skara from the movie and the TV show. He was at a convention. He was in the Stargate movie, and then they brought him over to.
I never watched Stargate, so I don't know the character.
You never saw SG-1?
I watched a couple episodes, and I watched it a bit when I was started on Atlantis, just for the crossover, just to get a feel for it. But
Sure.
I didn't watch it generally. No.
Well, you'll be happy when you do. It really is superior to so many things. Anyway, he was on a show he was on the stage where they were asking him, well, you were brought over from the movie, and what was that like, and what are the differences between these actors and all of that? Alexa Cruz is the actor. It was bothering me. I had to look it up. Did an acting workshop with him too. Nice guy. Well, anyway, he's on stage and they're like, so tell us the difference between the movie and the show. Besides, tell us about Kurt Russell and Rick.
Right.
And he said, they're both wonderful people. They're man's men and good guys and just sweet. And they're like, what about Daniel? I said, big difference. Big difference. Michael Shanks, sweetheart, good guy, wonderful to be around. The other guy from the movie, not so good. Which he's wow. Infamous for it.
Who was it?
From the
What's in the movie?
Give me 2 seconds because I just had it in my head.
I didn't see the movie either.
Well, I'll tell you, it plays like a pilot for a TV show, which is good if you're into it.
Yeah.
Played by, I can't believe I can't think of James Spader.
Oh yeah, I've heard he's yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've heard it since because and again, Alexa Cruz is trying to not cause crap, but he goes, you know what? I'm not telling lies. He was not. He, the cliche Hollywood actor who's a prima donna. That's the guy.
Yeah.
And everybody, he said, so there's your difference between the two guys. One guy makes it a pleasure to work with. The other guy looks for trouble and wants to be treated special and blah, 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 blah. So, and you're right, through the years, just like you've heard, I've heard other actors say to me, avoid him at all costs. Which is
Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller, I've heard, because they did Night at the Museum here, all of them here, and I've heard he's not the easiest to work with.
Really? That's a shame.
Yeah.
Again, there's a guy that you think, oh, he's probably a nice guy.
But what often happens, and I've seen this, is there's the guy on set, and then there's the guy who's your next door neighbor.
Yes.
So you might have an actor, he gets to work, and for whatever reason, and some of them it's insecurity, some of them they think, well, I should have a bigger part. Some of them think, oh, I had to audition for this, how humiliating. So they come with all kinds of baggage anyway. Then when they go home, everybody's, you think, well, he's a great guy. What's the problem? Well, you got to work with him. So there's a lot of that goes on.
Well, Rick told a story of William Shatner. And William Shatner
he was on Psych.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Again, we have all those episodes. Like, we love that show. Whenever a new movie of it comes out, we're like, yay. Yeah. But yeah, he's famous for, during his days of Star Trek, he would steal lines from other actors. He'd go, wait, that's you always hear these stories of the other actors going, yeah, he's not great. Because he would go, wait, Spock has that line? I want it. Give it to me. Find a way to give it to me. Oh, and Rick would tell the story of, he was at a con with them, and I guess they had to be next to each other. And I had heard this from other people, but to hear it directly from Rick was something. He goes, for me to do a con, I want to talk to people. I want to give me 5 minutes with a human being.
Yeah.
It's not going to go bad. No matter who they are, it could be great. But they pay the money. They want to see me. Give me 5 minutes. Well, he's sitting next to Shatner, who's looking down, never looks up, has 2 pens in his hand. One's black, one's white, depending on where he needs to sign. He goes, all right, there you go. Next. And never looks up at them, never has like the one-on-one. Yeah. So, to hear, and Rick being the sweetheart that he is, never wants to say anything bad about anybody. He said, no, I'm not going to paint a picture that isn't true.
Yeah.
He showed me what not to be.
Yeah, right.
And you're right.
One of the directors on MacGyver was Mike Vehar. And Mike Vehar was an editor before he was a director. And he was an editor on Star Trek, the original movie, or the original series. And they were at a wrap party, and one of the other editors, which is how he knows because they all talk, they were at the wrap party, and he goes up to Bill Shatner and he says, next season, it'd be really great for us is if you paused a minute after your line, because, an actor will say, okay, let's go. Now, wait a second. And then they'll go, because it gives the editor a chance to, if you say, let's go. Well, where's the edit, right? So they said, can you just be that extra little bit? Next season, that editor wasn't hired back.
Wow.
Now, you could say it was for other reasons.
Sure.
But,
from the stories I've heard, that
Yeah.
sounds like it was a ixnay on him. And at the
Yeah.
time, again, if you don't have a cluster of good people looking out for one another,
Yeah.
somebody just goes, oh, Bill doesn't want it, gone.
Every man for themselves, yeah. Nobody wants to stand up.
And I'll tell you, everybody that I've ever met who had anything to do with Stargate or MacGyver, such as yourself, have always been sincere, wonderful, giving people.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. And it shows in the work. So I'm happy for that.
It was fun to work on, for sure.
What
challenge.
What are you working on now?
My golf game.
Really? I've seen the pictures.
I'm retired.
Good.
Yes, I did 3 seasons of The Magicians.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to do 2 more seasons, which I was going to do. And then my financial guy said, you could afford to retire now. Bang, that was it. I'm done.
He didn't even get to finish the sentence. You heard retire.
No, in fact, on my way home, I think I was phoning looking for golf courses to join. So I joined a golf course, and that's what I do.
Well, I don't blame you. I would too. And you were on Psych for what, the whole series?
All but the first season. It was funny because after the first season, they fired the producer, the production manager, the entire art department, set decorating, and prop department.
Wow.
And a whole new crew came in of people that we all know, people that I'd worked with for many, many years, not just in the art department, props and set deck, but in, production manager and producer. So we were people who already knew each other. And we just spent the next 7 years having a blast. It was so much fun to work on. I mean, you watch the show and it looks fun.
Yeah.
That's how much fun it was to work on.
Well,
James and Dulé. Oh my God.
The two of them together are just nuts.
I know, and they were like that all the time. Like, I'd be in a meeting. James started directing, and we'd be in a meeting, and we'd be making jokes, and it's just, they were great.
And that's fast paced. His character, I always say he's fun to. The character's fun to watch, but in reality, I think I'd be telling him, just shut up, just shut up, just shut up. Exactly. Take a breath, dude. Yes. God, you're exhausting to be around all the time.
Yes, yeah, it's true. But it was fun to watch.
I saw them on a panel, or went to New York Comic Con a couple years ago, and they did a panel talking about the first movie, and they were a blast just on stage. The way their natural repertoire was, the rapport with each other was amazing, and it comes off on screen. So you're lucky when you get to work on a fun show.
Well, and the two of them, you're right. It's like, any great comedy team, right? They know each other so well. They know what the other one's going to do. So they know how to mug and the look to give. And, and often the funniest bits, they're not saying anything. They're just looking at each other weird.
Mm-hmm.
Dulé had the big googly eyes. And
well, Tim Omundson is hilarious too.
He is very funny. Yeah, it's so sad though. But
I know. He's a fighter though. Like they were talking about his stroke at the panel.
Yeah.
And he's come back stronger. And the second movie was all about him.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was great.
But a sweet, talented man, funny as can be.
Yeah. He actually, after the second season, he said, Pat, I think I need a new firearm, because we had Glocks. It's the most ubiquitous thing. So we went actually to the place, the guy who rents all the guns, went there with me and Tim and him, and we went through everything. It was like a kid in a candy store, just because he knows guns. He actually knows them quite well, and he knew what he wanted. So we got him what he wanted. And but when you work with an actor like that, you want to help him. You want to drive him to the place, and you want to have him meet the gun guy. You want him to really like what he's doing, because you really like him and you want him to do well. I mean, I might do a similar thing for another actor, but maybe not to the same extent. It's like, okay, here's some pictures. What do you like?
Yeah.
But with those guys, you really went out of your way.
And I think it's part of like that whole, if you're a good person, you want to be around a good person.
Exactly.
So you're naturally drawn to, how much time do I get with him? Yeah.
And you know what? Again, another Steve, the head of the guy who created the show, Steve Franks, the most wonderful guy you'd ever want to meet. Steve Franks, you talk about a big kid. Steve Franks is 6'10" or 11. And he's 12 years old. He's like a kid in a candy shop. He honestly, after 5 or 6 seasons of Psych, he would come up to Vancouver like it was his first day ever on a film set. Oh my God, I'm making a movie. Who does that? People
I
are
love
so
it.
dated and cynical. And they weren't like that at all. So it starts at the top, goes down, just like Steve Downing was.
Exactly. And it's funny too, because Steve Downing, I give him all these compliments. He's so humble.
Oh yeah.
It makes you love him more because you're like, that's how you answer. You don't go, yes, I do deserve all of this. You just go, well, it's a team effort.
Yeah. What he didn't tell you is that he took a creative writing course when he was, starting to get into writing. And Joseph Heller was in the same class. Joseph Heller was also a cop. You know Joseph Heller? He wrote, what did he write now? He wrote, he did a bunch of cop books that turned into TV shows. And I'm trying to think. You can look it up. Joseph Heller.
I will. I definitely will.
He's a well-known novelist. He went on to write novels, and Steve went on to write TV. But they were both cops.
Yeah.
And they knew each other, and that's why they got into this class together. So,
isn't that funny?
Your audience will know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure they're
Actually,
right now.
What? Give me 1 second.
Sure.
I've got one of his books here, I think. Maybe not. I'll show you one thing. We got these as a crew gift after Stargate. So it's the, if you can see very well there, trying to get out of the light.
There you go.
And then on the back,
oh wow!
got actual
with water in it. Oh wow!
You see that?
Yeah.
And then they're all DVDs of the show.
Get out of here! That is wow. So that was like a special thing for the crew.
Yeah. Oh, that is. Anyway, yeah.
I don't know. Well, that was going to be my other question was, have you kept anything from any of the shows?
So there's a guy who lives in France.
Yep, Mark. Okay. I know Mark has reached out to me many times.
So I'm selling a bunch of stuff to him.
Good. He's thrilled.
The only thing that I kept that was an actual prop was something that is known by those who know as the MacGyver log. It's a piece of wood about.
He was asking me about that one from the Sasquatch episode.
From the Sasquatch episode. Again, that was built by the same prop makers who built the Jade Dragon. Because I have an actual branch, but he's got to fight with it, so we built a bunch of rubber ones.
Okay.
And I held on to that thing, and I've used it on a lot of different shows. He's going to hit him with a branch. I got the branch, the MacGyver branch. So I have that. That's the only thing, and I'm selling it to Mark. So.
Sure. Well, he wants to make a museum.
Exactly.
In France. So I'm like, more power to you, buddy.
Well, here's my, no, it's not here. I also have some stuff. What was the name of the actress who played his kind of girlfriend in the
Penny Parker? Is that who you're talking about? Terry?
No, not Penny.
Hatcher?
You're
talking about Elisa.
Elisa, yes.
Yes.
At the end of that season, she gave everybody a MacGyver watch. It's just a very plain, simple black watch with MacGyver written on the outside.
Really?
So I
was going to say, hang on to that.
Clock. So yeah.
Wow.
And my MacGyver chair from one crew gift. I don't remember which one it was, but I'm not giving up that.
No. That's the director's chair. Is that what you mean? One of those?
Yeah, it's one of the short director's chairs with MacGyver written.
Oh yeah, hang on to that stuff forever. Honestly.
Yeah. If I'd have known, think of the things that I could have kept from that show. That anyway.
I know. Who knew, right? Hey, Swiss Army knives alone, I would have been like, today was Tuesday. Today was.
I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You had it good with the Vitronox guys. You could get one anytime.
But not the one.
Well, not the one. No.
Actually used on camera. There's a thing in the memorabilia community. You probably know this. There's memorabilia from the show, and then there's as seen on camera. And the as seen on camera just takes it to a whole new level in terms.
There's the one site, MacGyver Online, that I reference all the time. They've been around since the beginning of the internet. Back when it was pixelated pictures, and I've stuck with them ever since. And they have a page on there where it goes, here's the knives, here's a whole bunch of knives, and depending on what episode it was, what knife was used.
Right.
The Viking on this one.
And there was one episode you'll remember where we had a different Swiss Army knife. It was a big one that came out and it had a locking blade on it. I don't know if you remember that one.
Probably.
I got you on something.
No, I probably do. But see, for me, I'm not, unlike my buddy Cliff, who goes, oh, that's the Spartan. oh, that's the such and such.
Right.
I just kind of looked at it and would let that wash over me,
Right.
where I'd go, okay, instead of MacGyver having one knife, I assume he's like me, where if people know you carry knives, they start giving you them.
Oh,
And you go, great. So if he gives away a knife in an episode, it's not the only one.
right.
He'll go home and just throw another one in his pocket.
Right.
Because the one I think you're talking about also had a saw in it. And
Yes.
there you go. So I remember that. And I remember thinking, okay, wait, the one he used previously is the one that I have in my pocket. That doesn't have a saw. So now I got to get one with a saw.
Well, and the other reason why we use that one is because I can't remember why, but he had to do some like stabbing motion or something, and the blade locked. With the regular ones, they don't lock. So if you stab something, it can close and cut yourself quite badly.
I know. I've learned that the hard way.
Well, speaking of accidents, you talk about things going wrong on set, and Rick may not remember. Oh, Rick will remember this, I'm sure. For some reason, he used to always like to use Banaka mouth spray because you're acting with people and you don't want to have bad breath.
Very sweet.
And one day, I don't know why or how he was doing it, but he sprayed it in his eye. Now, you know what it feels like on your tongue? Imagine we were down for, I don't know how long, almost an hour while they were washing his eye, and it was, oh my God.
Oh man. Well, do you remember it was during the 3rd season, and I never quite got the specifics on what, but he was running apparently, and he had hurt his back because he stepped in a hole.
Oh yeah, he had a bad back.
Right, and it was because of that. Do you remember what episode that was? Because I'll tell you, I've gone back and watched this, obviously seen the episode.
I barely remember the event.
Right. Well, it was 3rd season because I remember it was the social media made such a big deal out of it.
Oh.
And then I remember him being on during the 4th, right before the beginning of the 4th season, he did like an Entertainment Tonight. And it showed him on Arsenio Hall bringing a cushion to sit on.
Right, yeah.
And I always thought, boy, I would love to know what episode, because as you watch the episodes, him running isn't, that's not strange.
You're not tripping and falling.
Right, but I'd love to go, I wonder if it was that scene or if, you know what I mean?
Oh, right, yeah. It might not have been the one that I was on set for.
Yeah.
Well, I do remember it happening because,
it was a big deal.
Well, even on Stargate, I don't know if you noticed, but he did very little actual running. It was almost always his stunt double or his body double.
Yep.
Because he couldn't.
Yeah, they used that in the beginning of season 6 where they go, Jack just had knee surgery.
Oh, right. So that's
it shows him because he couldn't cover it up.
Oh yeah.
During his break, he did have knee surgery.
Yeah, and that started from playing hockey.
Oh, with the 2 broken arms and everything. For the love of God, that's God's way of saying maybe you should move on.
Maybe you should try something else.
Of course, then even after MacGyver, he's doing that extreme skiing where you're jumping, skiing off cliffs.
Greenberg, yeah.
What are you, nuts? I mean, even
if you do it right, it's actually a very soft landing.
Sure.
If you do it right.
Well, there you go. It's like skateboarding. Why would you try the tricks when 99% of the time you're going to hurt yourself?
Did Steve tell you the story about how he was cast?
No, I've heard it. I've heard Henry Winkler tell it.
Oh, okay.
But go ahead.
It's probably the same story. I'm just going to read. Yeah, exactly. We came in, he had his bag, and he couldn't read the lines. So he's fumbling his bag, and he put on his glasses, and he was kind of getting up. And they all looked at you and just said, they didn't say a word. They said, that's the guy.
Yeah. Which is amazing because apparently everybody else that was in the waiting room were big Italian muscular guys.
Right. Yeah.
Being the cliche 80s, this must be what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And he came in wearing his the classic brown leather jacket.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like his MacGyver jacket was his act. I was amazed to find out. And then you would see it carry through the TV movies and then to Stargate. He's wearing his own wardrobe whenever he wasn't wearing something that had to be specific.
Right. Well, I think after a while they actually got him jackets because they needed more than one.
Right. Well, no, they would make copies. They go, wait, is this Rick's jacket? Yeah. Okay. Make 5 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because especially if he had to do any rolling around.
Or stunt doubles, second unit.
Exactly. But like I've seen his flight jacket and bomber jacket in TV movies. And then he has this one long black leather jacket, which was his personal one. He ends up using it on a few episodes of SG-1. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I
Well,
like
and then
that.
he also had the sort of shiny green bomber jacket. Or am I thinking
Well, it
of
was
this
blue.
one?
There was a blue and there was a black one.
Okay.
Because,
Right.
you know, depending on the episode, I had a debate with the guy on the MacGyver online who said, no, it's always black. I said, nope. On this episode, it's a little puffier and it's navy blue.
Okay.
And he goes, oh, so he goes back and checks. He goes, yep,
Yeah.
you're right. And had to make the adjustments on his website. But I knew that it was his.
Yeah.
And they're easy. They're $30 to get a flight,
exactly.
one of those things. Because
And
not only
Asian
have
brand.
I worn one, my children now are like, I want to get a MacGyver jacket.
I got one while I was on MacGyver.
Really?
So, yeah.
Is it the one? Is it the one that actually says MacGyver on it?
No. I bought it for myself.
Okay, because they did have, I know, a crew. They had a couple crew jackets where one looked like a baseball jacket.
They had the I call it the college.
Yes.
Yep.
The two-tone where the sleeves are a different color.
Yeah.
Like a varsity jacket. That's it.
Varsity. Yeah. I gave that one to my wife's cousin, who lives in Greece, because he's a mathematician because he fell in love with MacGyver. So I gave him the jacket.
Wow, that's
quite a few years ago now. Yeah.
And it's funny if you look on eBay, those things are going for like, if anybody finds one, of course, they're like, here's a real jacket from the crew. And
actually, we used to have a joke here in Vancouver after the show ended that there was a section in Value Village called the MacGyver section. It was all the crew gifts that were given away.
Really?
Well, they didn't actually have a section, but we called it the MacGyver section. Because you go to Value Village and you see the sweatshirts and the jackets and all.
This is where they did the shopping.
Those people wish they had them now.
I know. Well, that's the thing. Again, a testament to how the show has stayed in everybody's mind. The fact that people would care about a pair of socks that Rick wore and, whatever.
I got to, they talk about dining out, you dine out on an event you had in your life. And I've been dining out on MacGyver for, we'll go on holidays somewhere, sitting at a table with people. What did you do? I was MacGyver. And it's like, that's all they talk about for the rest of the trip. It's this guy was MacGyver. This guy, it's like everybody knows. It was like a huge deal.
That's
actually
amazing.
Told people, they say I was MacGyver, and they say no, Richard Dean Anderson was MacGyver. I said no, Richard Dean Anderson played MacGyver. Somebody had to figure all that stuff out. So,
well, who is it? One of the guys, I think it was either Rick Drew or John Shepard was telling me. No. It was John, the other writer who's an actor. He was on, and he was saying, you have to get a hold of the science guy,
right?
Who was the consultant for that. And I guess he's not easy to get a hold of because
they stopped using him after a while.
Really?
Yeah, just for that reason. And also, when you're dealing with TV, you get an expert to come in and they say, okay, how is this done? We want to know exactly how this is technically done. He says, this, and you go, okay, well, we're going to cut out the middle section and 4 parts of the bit in the band because that's not interesting for TV. And I think he was more about, okay, this is what you need to do. And they're saying, it's not going to make very good TV. So they started kind of figuring it out on their own.
John Constantine was the one who sweet guy. He was saying, I would love to get a hold of that guy because you could sit and just listen. He'll tell you about the guts. Fascinating guy. And, he'd say, I just ask him one thing. And 3 hours later, he's telling me the guts of a blender type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's something. I didn't know that. Yeah. He goes, oh, yeah, he would draw up whatever it was and have all these sketches.
Yeah.
That's fascinating stuff.
But it is, it is a thing with, we want it exactly right unless it doesn't look good on TV, and then we'll do something else.
Sure. Well, especially if it's going to blow up, you don't want to.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. And you want to show exactly what the chemicals are that he used to blow something up.
Well, all right. Let me let you go because again, I'm loving this.
Are people going to listen to 2.5 hours of us prattling on?
I promise you, not only do we have this video version, which does amazingly well, but then the audio version goes to all the podcast sites. So it not only is it going to be new today, it'll be there forever. And you'd be amazed at the feedback I get. People tell me about, that 3rd episode you did. I'm like,
wow.
I assume that was 5 years or more, maybe 10 years. I don't remember when this started, but yeah, I always wait until I either feel like I need to do an episode because there's an audience for it.
Yeah.
But 2, if I can snag such a fun person such as yourself, get you on here and let's talk, because as much as it means to me, I know
There's
people are
lots of-
fascinated to hear the guts of
Do you know when it'll be on? When I'll be able to see it?
either tonight or tomorrow. I will.
Oh.
I'll send you an email.
Send
And,
me an email.
and
Not that
please-
I'm going to watch myself talk for 2 hours. But
no, but I know you want to tell people, hey,
I'm going to show people. Yeah, exactly.
if you miss
I'll send it to Dan Shea. I said, Dan, guess what I did and you didn't. That'll piss him off.
I guarantee he's going to send me an email soon. Go, so I'm ready now,
He will.
because we're
How come
Facebook
Pat's on
friends.
before me because he's a rich kid. Trust me. Don't do
He
that.
bought his way on.
Yeah.
He's good. He goes back and forth through Facebook with me and stuff. So I guarantee I'm going to hear from him. I'll be like, oh, no, there's no polar bear dive or anything to do. No
Yeah,
plane to throw yourself out of.
That's right.
Well, him and the others that we were talking about, they do some extreme stuff.
Yeah.
Some of these sports, I'm like, wow, I'm excited for you, but I'm also nervous watching you.
Yeah, it's a problem with some actors because they have it in their contract. They're not allowed to do any kind of dangerous sport.
Right. Oh, Rick was one of them where they'd be like,
Yeah.
stop doing that. Stop it.
Oh yeah. We had we were playing hockey one night, and my friend Pete, who's also quite a good hockey player, took a puck on the on his helmet, but it caught his ear. He actually missed the next day's work. He came in, huge ear stitches. It was horrible.
Ooh.
So Steve Downing is on set, and he grabs Rick and he pulls him over. He points to Pete's ear and he goes, "See that? That doesn't happen to you. No more hockey." Because it could have happened to him, and then
Oh, yeah.
we'd be out of work for 3 months.
Well, that's what he was saying. He would always be nervous. Like,
Yeah.
What'd you do this weekend, Rick? Nothing. No, seriously, what'd you really do? I raced some cars. I threw myself off a cliff. Well, stop doing that.
Well, and then we have the race episode.
I know. It's funny. Like,
With
all right.
Gordon G. Liddy. Do you remember Gordon G. Liddy?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa, that was he's a character.
Well, it's funny too, because, my father would always say, you know what I like about him? No, Dad, what? When they got caught, he kept his mouth shut.
He kept because he's a spy. He knows
Yeah.
how to keep his mouth shut.
He didn't rat on anybody. He just
Nope.
took the jail time. And
Yep.
so, and to see him on the episode, and Rick Drew was telling me about, he was a consultant for him when they did the episode called The Wall, which was the German spy one, where it's right with the grandfather and hiding the gold and the figures. G. Gordon Liddy was the one who told him about all of that, and about how the laser hitting off the window.
Oh,
I'm like,
maybe I didn't do that episode. It's not immediately coming to mind.
yeah, that's that. Rick was like, yeah, to call him and have him give you some secrets. You're like, ooh, I feel the chills.
Actually, that just reminded me. Have you had Vince Dedrick on?
No,
Oh, he was the stunt coordinator.
really?
Yeah, you gotta have Vince on.
All right. If is he on social media?
I have no idea. Oh, you know what? He's on Facebook.
All right.
His dad, Vince Dedrick Sr., was Paul Newman's stunt double. I mean, this is a family. Way
Wow.
back. So yeah, Vince was the stunt coordinator. He was another lovely guy. Vince was actually who's the actor that was in Michael Douglas?
Mhm.
He was Michael Douglas. He did the fall over the cliff in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh,
Anyway,
the Jewel of the Nile. Yeah.
Yeah, Vince has got stories.
Yeah. All right.
He's got
Well,
stories. Yeah, Vince Dedrick.
if you
Look him
remember, send me his name. Type it, because I'll butcher it if I have to type it. I'd be like, I can't find this guy. And I was chatting with through, I don't know if it was Twitter or what, James Bamford, who is the stunt.
Oh yeah, well, I know. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Bam Bam.
Bam Bam. Yeah. I had said something about an episode. He goes, you know what? I don't watch it. Like, you don't watch the show. You're like Atlantis, say example.
Yeah.
He goes, nope, never watch it. Or Arrow. He went on to Arrow and do all those shows. Goes, yeah, I never watch it. And when we were talking before about, if you're in the business, that doesn't mean you necessarily get to see your show.
Yeah.
Michael Shanks.
I watch everything I've done, whether I like it or not,
Sure.
just to see how my work is eventually conceived on screen. Because when you're on set, it's very different because it's all choppy and cut up and you don't know how it's going to be edited and you don't really know what it's going to look like because
Sure.
in post they do color timing and they change the mood and you don't really know. So I always watch everything just to see how my work looks. And if I like the show, I'll keep watching it. Just for professional reasons, I do that.
Oh, I'm with you. I think I'd be the same way.
I listened to an interview with Woody Allen.
Okay.
Woody Allen directs a movie, edits it, gets it ready, delivers it, never watches it again. He doesn't even go to the theater to watch it. Never watches any of his movies again.
He's an odd
Because
duck.
it's done. He says, all I'm going to do is sit there and look at all the stuff I could have done better. Why would I want that? I got another movie to make.
That seems true to form for him. I can see that, right? Never happy with
No.
what was his thing? I'd never be part of. Was it him or was it?
I never knew that was Groucho Marx.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member.
Yeah. But yeah, like Michael Shanks, when I would meet him, he'd come to me and go, "What season are they showing right now?" And I'd be like, season 7 or 8 or whatever. And he'd go, "Okay, I've only gotten up to season 3 as far as when I get a chance to watch them." Yeah, because we'd be asking him specifics, and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's out now?" Like, yeah. "Oh, we just filmed that last month." I'm like, yeah, but we get to see it,
Yeah.
It's funny. All right, let me let you go because I know we're going to go on another tangent.
Yes.
Which I'm not complaining, but trying to be a good host. And
You know what? I'd be happy to be on again if you.
thank you, buddy. Yeah,
You think of more questions.
you say that. Well, I'm going to.
Okay. Well, I feel like I've exhausted all my stories, but I'm sure some will come back.
Trust me, I'm a good primer because what happens now when I have someone like you or Rick Drew or anybody on, when I go back to watch these episodes now, I have now a new appreciation and a new side to look at it.
Right.
Where I could go.
One last story. Nothing to do specifically with MacGyver. My wife and I, 2 years ago, we went to Copenhagen. We'd actually gone to Russia. We went to Copenhagen. We get into our hotel. And the first thing we do is, what news channels do they have on? Because, in Europe, it's all, you never know. I like watching CNN, BBC. Turn on the channel. Thing comes up. It's MacGyver. An episode I worked on.
Oh, that's got to feel
on the
cool.
TV in Copenhagen. It's the first thing that comes on.
You're like, honey. I did this.
Oh yeah, my wife's like, yeah, and then she goes back to MacGyver. And yeah, it was the one with Penny Parker where they discover the skeleton and then he reconstructs the face.
Secret of the Parker House.
Yeah, and it looks like her. That was on, and I watched it and I thought it's actually pretty good.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I hadn't watched it in 40 years, 30 years, whatever it is.
That's the third Halloween type episode
Right.
that I wasn't thinking of, but you're right, because I remember it came out during the writer's strike. So they had to push this whole season back, which is why Blood Brothers always comes off as the first episode. But Parker House was separate because they're like, look, we're going to give you this because it's Halloween time.
Right.
We have to show it now. So boom, the rest you'll have to wait until like January to see.
Yeah, that often happens.
Right. And that was a special one.
Yeah. No, I liked it too because Terry was so great. I loved her. She was just so sweet.
That's what they were
She
saying.
was kind of new, and
they would intentionally write episodes because they liked her so much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And she was great. So that was.
Luckily, they fleshed her out more because remember,
yes.
In the beginning she was just annoying as can be.
She was just
Yeah, but then especially in that episode, you got to see like a more adult like.
Right. Well, and a little bit of a backstory and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah.
Well, listen, I'm going to leave you with one last word of advice.
Yeah.
Be good and stay in school.
Exactly. Isn't that the truth? Boy, that's the best advice I could think of.
There you go. Okay.
I will talk to you later, and I will send you the link as soon as I edit this bad boy together.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and hi to all the MacGyver fans. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Thanks, Mac.
Bye. The MacGyver podcast is part of the Forever Adventure Network. Some original artwork by Joseph Arnold. Donations can be made at Patreon to Mac Jackson. Look for our group pages on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at MacGyver Podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review. And remember, stay creative, everyone. The Forever Adventure Network. Welcome to the adventure.
Hi, this is Amara from the Always Podcast. I want to make sure you know about another awesome show, the MacGyver SG-1 audio series.
His eyes darted over to Jack's weapon. Sam, start taking all the gunpowder out of these bullets. He stunned Jack by taking the gun from his hands, and with one swift motion released the clip, discharging the bullets in the chamber before handing the empty gun back to the general.
It's written, edited, and performed by Mac Jackson of the MacGyver podcast. He's bringing together the worlds of MacGyver and Stargate to bring us all new and ongoing adventures.
For some reason, something caused both Jack and MacGyver to glance up at the second-floor office window that hung over the large storage hangar. It was a shadow of a moving figure, a figure who now was staring down at them. Before they could say anything or move, the man ran over to the railing and opened fire on them. In that moment, they each knew they were about to be riddled with bullets.
Get into the epic story and hear how brothers Mac and Jack work together.
Suddenly, he spun on his heels to his brother. "Jack, give me your phone." The general quickly took it from his pocket and handed it over. "Yeah, it isn't working, you know." "No, not as a phone." With that, MacGyver knelt down and smashed Jack's cell phone off the ground and cracked it open. As he pried it apart and reached for his knife, Jack stood stunned. "That's my phone."
And how they disagree.
As he turned the engine off, he rechecked the inside of his pocket and pulled out his automatic handgun to check the chamber. As he verified the bullets loaded, he could see the disappointing glare of his brother in the seat next to him. "What? This again?" "I don't like guns, Jack." "Yeah, me neither. I like getting shot a lot less."
Subscribe and review today on Apple iTunes and like the Facebook page to keep up on all the latest episodes. I've been catching up on past episodes, and you don't want to miss it.